All right, right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. I am cutting it close. I just hopped in the seat, pulled an espresso. I was going to hold the espresso up to the thing so you could see what it looked like, the crema situation, because John is a pretty serious coffee head. But the thing is, this pull is kind of bullshit, and it's gonna taste fine, but yeah. Zach's giving me the elbow cough. I'm here, man. No elbow coughs needed. But I'm not gonna show him this crema because I have the capabilities here to get it really, really good, and this is just a little bit subpar. I didn't grind it fine enough, but we'll talk coffee once he's actually added to the chat after my invaluable Mark Maron-esque preamble, which you can all fast forward through once you're watching this on listening to it in podcast form. Yeah, that's something to announce, that the podcast this is now going to be in the podcast form. Let me get my fucking hair right here. Let's get in the mindset here. Motherfucker. All right, here we go. This is going to be uploaded in podcast form. The everything so far has, all the streams so far. Yeah, man, the Bolzer. I got that Bolzer shirt. And they're all up, so this will be up. And that's all you need to know for now. So John Lamberton is a musician, among other things, thinker, coffee expert, and something of a programmer. Quite a bit of a programmer, if I understand. He's going to fill us in more on his whole background. He hosts the podcast called The Bridge. The Bridge is an awesome podcast. It's just a lot of music and surrounding cultural realms. I appeared on his podcast. It was really cool about a year ago, and I met John I met him just at the local coffee place, Go Get 'Em Tiger. Great coffee place, terrible name. And we just started talking about theory and that kind of world, the theory, philosophy, transhumanist kind of thing. He knows quite a bit about transhumanism. He knows quite a bit about Bayes. And I don't really know much about Bayesian algorithms, statistics. In other words, this man has an actual brain that works not only in the creative psycho way, but also in the sense of normative functioning, processing data, thinking like the brain is actually supposed to. So he can help us in this regard. Actually, he'll probably say, no, that's not true. But let's see here. Let's bring John in. Let's bring in John Lamberton. What's up, man?
What's up, Charlie?
How you feeling today? I'm feeling great, dude. Yeah, we're both feeling great. We're both stepping on each other's toes.
Simultaneous echo.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know. Before we get into it, what's today? Tell me some minutia. I don't know.
Minutia. I don't know, man. Everything's going pretty well, nothing in particular of interest today.
Actually, when I was on your show, you asked me about coffee first. What coffee did you drink today? What was what's the coffee situation?
Let's see here. The coffee is it's a Colombian coffee, La Pyramide, which is just like a nice, clean, sort of light roasted coffee from Go Get 'Em Tiger.
Right on.
I just brewed it up in my brewer. I'm doing this. It's called an OXO brewer, which is just like a standard sort of drip machine that I've been sort of getting a feel for and giving some feedback on, which is luxurious because I'm used to brewing a little cup at a time, and now it's my coffee consumption is scaled up by 5 times.
Yeah. How many cups of coffee do you drink a day?
Like a liter and a half.
Really? You drink a liter and a half of coffee every
Something like
single
that.
day?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think so. Yeah, at least a liter.
Has it do you feel like are you compromising your health mentally in some way with because you seem fine. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not great for the sleep cycle, but I'm sort of, I don't know, I don't know how I feel about the sleep cycle in general.
You're not you're you're bullish about the sleep cycle, or no, bearish. Which is
Yeah,
it? Which is
yeah,
it?
bearish.
Bearish. You're bearish about the
Hmm.
sleep cycle.
Yeah, I'm doing short squeezes on sleep.
Are you like deliberately kind
No,
of no?
I'm just trying to go with the the stock market reference.
Those are stock market things. Okay, yeah, because I knew with bullish and bearish, it's funny. These are like, there are like words, there are like terms that you don't know where they're from, but you know that they're from outside. It's like from some other kind of person says it. Like I was
Hmm.
like bullish and bearish. I was like, I know my normal friends don't say that. I know that's from the internet that I know that. Yeah.
It's funny with like bullish, like of course it sort of goes into like bulls and bears, I guess, go into like various sexual domains. And so the other day I was like, what is like the like scrawny thin like vegan equivalent of a bull sexually? I landed on Ibex.
And Ibix, you're
Yeah.
feeling Ibix-ish about
Hmm.
it. Yeah, I don't know how that translates into stock market terms.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have some money in the stock market, but yeah, someone manages it for me. I don't know. I don't know really what's going on. That shit was cool though, man. The finance punk moment
Hmm.
or whatever.
GameStop.
GameStop. I don't know if that's going to become a whole thing or if that was just a one-off.
I mean, it's beautiful.
Beautiful thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that kind of comes from like, well, no, you're not coming from the finance world, but I mean, I know that you kind of come from like statistics, the rational sphere. Because I want to talk about, yeah, we got to get people up on your whole history and stuff. And it's like,
Mhm.
there's going to be music, but then I want to make sure to cover your whole musical background and cover what you have going on other than music and just sort of how this all fits together. Um, yeah, let's see how to start. Like if we're talking about yeah, okay. Well, actually, tell me first about music. Like, how'd you get started with that? Like, what's your general? I know a little, but yeah, tell
Mhm.
people what your musical background's all about.
I mean, I've been playing guitar for as long as I can remember, and I went to school at USC, studied jazz guitar, and basically just sort of like after I was done with that, I was just uninterested in music, and so I took some time off to like learn some more like intellectual stuff and get more versed in like math and that type of stuff. So yeah, I always wanted to just feed it back in, but I don't know, I sort of like went through a phase of thinking guitar was stupid and like I think I asked you about that on my podcast. I was just like, do you think that this is a worthless instrument because it's tuned poorly? It's just like this like badly designed thing.
Yeah,
But now I'm sort of back on it and I've reclaimed my instrument.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. I mean, that G string, the tuning, the ability. I mean, that will go like that will eventually be weeded out by history. I'm sure. Like just,
mhm.
but yeah, yeah. I feel like a lot of people go to school for. Well, I hear what you said about hating music after or hating your instrument after music school and taking a break after that. I hear
Mhm.
that a lot with jazz, with people who study jazz. Not as much with classical uh, people, but I feel like jazz school. It never seemed that dark to me, but I mean, people seem to come out of a lot of people come out of jazz school just like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, Wesleyan is pretty like forward thinking, right? Or like pretty progressive on the aesthetic end.
well, it's so different. I couldn't even compare the two because I mean, it's not a conservatory at all. Like even within the university, there isn't like a music program in the sense of getting a BM, right? I mean,
Okay.
did you get a BA or a B like a bachelor's of music?
I went in as a BM, but then like it was like a studio jazz guitar program, which essentially means like here's how you play some like stuff that might make you a little bit of money, but probably not. And so
Right.
I just eventually sort of lost interest and started taking like Chinese and like weird other things that were actually like going to be stimulating. So
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah. But that's still a music. That's like an actual music program,
yeah.
conservatory style. Whereas
Hmm.
like Wesleyan there is no music degree. I mean, it's like a BA. You major in music, but what that is there's no chops, there's no guitar, there's no instrument. It's like
Interesting.
it's just like a buffet of multicultural, like literally like a half semester of gamelan, a half semester, or like a third of a semester of gamelan, a third of a semester of John Cage, third of a semester of like classical harmony. Um, I had an amazing time. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was awesome. I would not pay for my child to do that because the level of rigor was just like zero. It's just like, but it's very forward thinking in a sense. Anthony Braxton was there, and so he wasn't cracking the whip, but spending time with him, you learn a ton about experimental. So you know what I mean? It's like you self-teach yourself based on just osmosis there, so I fucking got a ton out of it. But in any case, it's enough about me. But yeah, jazz school, dude. You hated it.
Yeah, so I went to USC like hoping to study with Joe DiOrio, but he basically had a stroke right before I got there, and so he was out. And they still have a ton of other amazing teachers, and so I got to study with like Carl Verheyen from Supertramp and all this weird shit.
Interesting.
Yeah,
He's
like,
teaching there?
Yeah, he teaches like as adjunct or whatever, and some other guys that are really good. And the classical department, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but like Scott Tennant and like Will Cannengeiser, Brian Head, not Brian Head from Korn, but other Brian Head. Yeah, they're all amazing. So
you got like Fieldies, your TA and shit.
I did have a class with Flea, but
really, that's cool. Yeah,
he was in my composition for non-majors.
Nice. Okay, he seems like a real mensch, Flea, right?
Yeah, I mean, the teacher like played this Ludoslavsky thing, and dude just got so excited, like be told Ludoslavsky or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Ludoslavsky's cool. Yeah, he's sick. Yeah, because I know you the jazz stuff we were talking about. I mean, you're into the far out shit though, obviously. I mean, we were talking about Ben Monder, right? He's like a touchstone for you.
Yeah, he's my dude.
Dude, Ben Monder is so sick, dude. Yeah, I have to admit I did not listen yet to his appearance on the Bridge podcast. Or I listened to like just the beginning, but I didn't get to really get through it. Everyone should check that out though, including me, because he doesn't do a ton of interviews, right? I mean, that's sort of...
I think he's starting to do some here and there, but the thing that I'm proud of is that I got him to divulge a little information about the source of one of his titles, which is window panes. I don't know if you can deduce the relevance.
Window panes.
It's just like a specific type of LSD.
Oh, word. Okay.
I was like, is this about this? And he's like, yeah.
I did not. Yeah. I could see him being very psychedelic. I was about to do some joke about like a boomer being frustrated with like Windows 95 or something. I don't know. Yeah, man. Because Monder is like, he's coming out of jazz, right? But just harmonically, he's like just completely on his own trip. Classic, coming out of modern classical, and he's super into death metal, right? We talked about that a little bit. We talked a bunch about the jazz death metal connection, or jazz just experimental, the experimental wings of those two genres kind of really converging, right?
Yeah, it seems like the jazz people all love Meshuggah, but it's interesting, like getting back into death metal recently. It's like the musicianship is just insane, and these jazz guitarists are all kind of like a little bit dorky and pathetic, and don't have much chops these days, and
they don't even have chops, man.
I mean, I'm just throwing shade, but like there are a few people that are amazing, but it's like kind of like, oh, cool scales.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that hard to have chops. That's why I always kind of like, even like D-list death metal bands have pretty great chops. It's like
definitely
same with jazz, right? I mean, just you go to like some restaurant and you hear someone playing jazz in the background, they might have amazing chops or whatever. But so then, okay, so you were on some like off guitar. You were put off guitar by jazz school, and then you're getting into math. Which,
my sister's basically like an actuary, and she's always been good at math, and I've been the music person. So like we sort of have the opposite interests, or like I want what she has and she wants what I have. I'm more of just like a math fetishist. Like I don't actually know that much about it. But I sort of like, go on these deep Wikipedia rabbit holes, and it's definitely like left its aesthetic imprint on me. So
The aesthetic of math fetishist. Okay, yeah. That's funny because I feel like if you asked me when I was growing up or coming up, what do I feel like the aesthetic of math? I would be like, that's the least cool thing on earth. But now there's this kind of, well, as humanism is reaching its limits, we can talk about this, but it's like this sort of the coder culture, the sort of the acceleration related theory culture, that whole wing. It does kind of have an aesthetic to it. Totally. I mean, there's something about it that's vibey, I fetishize it from a distance, though. I'm not a math, I'm probably less of an actual math guy than you as far as like really having a real head for it. But
yeah. When I was younger, I was like really into music theory, and these days, like it's apparently problematic to be into music theory because it's the wrong type of theory or whatever. But I feel like underlying music theory is just math and physics, and so like there's something unifying about it that doesn't have the sort of like, oh yeah, we're going to study European composers and what they did and why that's right, and the theory behind it. So
right. It's weird though, because it's like it has physics and stuff behind it, right? Like on the but so much of that Western music theory, it's like it's only loosely based on the overtone series and actual acoustics, right? Like tonality is, it's like took that and then kind of reined it into the temperament and whatnot. So, but yeah, it is mathematical though, for sure. People don't. It's weird to me. People don't study ancient Greek. It's funny when when you study like classical music, it's like it actually doesn't. If you're really gonna get into like the West or whatever, it's like they don't actually go back to like Pythagoras and stuff.
Oh, do they not? Oh.
Not really. Don't do they? I mean, I don't think. See, that's the thing. I didn't go to a real conservatory, but I mean, when you study composition at like Juilliard, I don't think you go back to like Pythagorean theorems and like the celestial harmony of the spheres and like Boethius. I don't think so. I do maybe.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. But yeah. But so what did I mean, the thing that we're gonna we got to lead to is this sort of this new project of yours. But let's not rush it. It's yeah. This stuff is really, really cool though. I was calling it death metal, but I think you were kind of calling it grindcore more. But we can talk about we'll talk about this. But so okay, so then like how what was the math, like what were you studying math wise, like statistics type stuff, like when you got out of school?
Well, I guess I should say that like in my senior year of college, I started like independently studying Max MSP, which is like kind of a gateway drug, I guess. And so then from there I just tried to learn some basic coding. Just like even learning the math behind like temperament is like refamiliarizing yourself with logarithms and that type of thing. That was pretty helpful to eventually take off in a new direction. And also I just wanted to like stop carrying around guitars, and so I was like, this laptop is pretty powerful, and you can do anything you want in Max really if you know how. So it's just like, why the fuck would I carry around this heavy instrument that costs so much money and has this stupid tuning structure when I could use any fucking sine wave or any wave that I want at any tuning, etc. Right. It's also limiting in its own way, but
yeah, we should. We'll make a Wojak meme for you where you're carrying a guitar-shaped brain extension on your back. Like going to the brain gig. Yeah, right. Max MSP. That's what I never. People were doing that at Wesleyan. They had some like electronic music stuff. Mm-hmm. Is that I think I know what that is, but just for the viewers, that's like where you make your own modular synths, but virtually physically on a computer? Is that kind of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a graphical user interface that allows you to sort of like put these objects together, and so like you have like the metro object, and like there's like the bang, which is basically just kind of like the verb of making something happen, and so it's kind of a pain in the ass to do anything on it, but you can craft anything you want as long as you can like make it explicit what you're trying to do.
Okay. So it isn't a modular. It's not emulating a modular synthesizer. It's like some completely other shit. Or
I mean, it is, but it's like you could treat it like a modular visual synthesizer if you want. Like there's like a thing called jitter. Like the MSP is just the signal processing, and the Max is kind of like the logic, and then jitter is the visual side. And so it's like you can literally do anything. So it's like you could replicate like an 808 or some sort of synth if you want, but it's totally like a blank slate.
Huh. I'm like, I'm like, dude, I'm like not sharp enough in that regard to even imagine. I'd have to see it. I'd have to see what these.
Well, at the end of the day, being visual, it's so much easier to use than something like Super Collider, which is I think what Anthony Braxton uses for his stuff. Or maybe I'm full of shit, but
it's not that you're full of shit. He doesn't use Super Collider. He has collaborated with people who are like using Super Collider to realize some of his ideas. I think or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think. Who is it that uses? Well, Ron Quivela was the guy there. I don't know if you know him.
Mm-mm.
I don't. Yeah, he was the electronic music guy there. But who was like doing Super Collider and Max MSP and shit. So Super Collider is just like code. Like it's just.
Yeah, it's a lot more just text. Yeah. And so the tech stuff is just like a lot harder for somebody like us musicians to wrap our heads around because you don't have to learn. You do have to learn extra sort of formatting stuff, and I'm just like, fuck this, I don't want to learn this. But Max and Pure Data is like a very similar program, which is open source and it's free basically. But they both are pretty similar in terms of like you can actually see these like little stringy patch chord things that like virtual patch chords from each object.
Yeah, totally. It's so funny how with stuff like this, like if you were like you're talking to like a young musician like just coming up, they would find what you're talking about less esoteric and forbidding than just being like, oh yeah, like the Dorian mode, you've got like the raised sixth, and then you'll like just have the flat sixth when you're going down. It's like that. I feel like that sounds like some weird arcane, like how could I even, you know what I mean? Whereas like I bet if you showed like your average smart, 16-year-old some like Max MSP or Super Glider, they'd be like, oh yeah, all right, like jump in.
Yeah, just I see what you're doing already. Like,
yeah. I mean, maybe I'm just overestimating, fetishizing Zoomer IQ or something. I don't know, but like, so you're like, right. So okay, so you got back into music through that, through Max MSP and stuff. And you're making like strictly electronic music, or like electronic sounding, like synth.
Yeah. So like, I guess like the dream was to make like an AI band so that I could just like I've always written challenging music and people have not wanted to play with me because it's fucking like, people in college don't want to fuck with 15, 16. And so I wanted to just have an AI band that accompanied me. And of course, doing artificial intelligence is way harder than you anticipate. So sort of fell apart and then sort of gradually became something again. But I was doing this more electronic project. It's kind of like a psychedelic white boy version of Chicago juke or like footwork, and so that's been the main project for the past while. And that was called Carry Tracks, and just kind of like 150, 160 BPM fucked up stuff, and it was largely based on these like uber complicated rhythmic grids. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of funny, you were talking about melody in that recent video, and I've just always been such a rhythmic essentialist. So that's something to dive into potentially.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because, with some of these, I knew that video was just so vague that I was just like, I'm not going to be, this is not about something to stand by in any way. You know what I mean? I was just like riffing, but I mean, like melody, rhythm is rhythm essential to melody? Because I don't know, because pitch, I mean, not for like chant, but I don't know. I feel like rhythms can be kind of implied by the unfolding of pitch or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I wonder why. I wonder like because I assume studying jazz, you're like all over melody and harmony. I mean, it's like
I think I was always criticized for not being good with it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I feel like there's more to say. Not philosophically, but just like music theory, like in school, you like learn all these scales and all these chords and the scales and chords, etc. Whereas rhythm, there isn't like a whole lexicon of stuff to do. You know what I mean? It's like there's just like subdivisions. There's like complexity, but it isn't like, well, at least like in a jazz world, jazz thing, it's you just swing and play. It's like all the nuances, like they're not codified, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like there aren't like names for all these different ways of doing things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with swing, it's kind of interesting because people try to codify it as like quarter or eighth notes equal like the triplet with the tied thing, and it's like at the end of the day, that's sort of right, I guess, conceptually, but it's like if you play like that, somebody's gonna be like, "Get the fuck off!" Like,
yeah.
That's terrible.
That is. I mean, we could spiral off into like the writing system doing violence to some other way of interacting with stuff, and like the West and the racial politics. I mean, we could, but no, at least for that. So okay, yeah. So rhythm and math, right? So you're getting back into like, I don't know. I hope I'm not like shoehorning you into some narrative. I'm just like I'm getting it very biographical. You know, I don't know. Like, yeah. But so yeah, I want to check out the footwork stuff because I don't really. Yeah, I've heard that that's a really cool world, like footwork music. Is that Baltimore or what is that?
It's Chicago, and it's basically like sort of like an outgrowth of house, and it's just sped way the fuck up. It came out of like ghetto house, and so ghetto house is usually a little bit slower, extremely fucking raunchy lyrics, just overtly sexual. Then it sped up into this thing that's like 160 BPM, and it's kind of interesting to have just like so many other musicians I know are like, what do you mean it's just always at that tempo? And so, like people don't think that way, but what am I trying to say? 160 BPM is like the standard, and what I started to do was like apply these different grids, and so like I have this concept called like implicative rhythms, which is like where the algorithm sort of started off. It's like for say 160 BPM 4/4 with this sort of groove, like you can take that and I would do something like put it in 1916 at 190 BPM and arrange it so it's the best replica of the same rhythm at the other grid.
Oh man, okay, wait, that just broke up. The connection broke up at like the most important moment of that thing. So okay, so you're 160 BPM. You have something in 1916 time. You said like a crazy.
Yeah.
Meter.
So like the juke stuff or like footwork will have like a sort of like a clave that's always like like 3-3-2 3-3-2, that type of really syncopated thing. But it's so fast that you can't really tell the difference between the threes and the twos. And so then my thing is then to switch it up, like say you don't have to be at 160 BPM to do that feel. So you can say like, I'm going to do 15/16 at 150 or 19/16 at 190, or it works out nicely with that because the 16 and the 16, just the math works out nicely with 160 BPM and 4/4 being 16/16. I feel like I'm going too fast through this.
A little too fast. Okay. So okay, wait. So you've got a clave that's like displaced by a 16th note? No.
Or just like a standard sort of idiom in footwork is the like dun 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 dun, or like slow down like dun 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 dun, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
So you can replicate any sort of clave like that at a different tempo using a different time signature if you just crunch some numbers.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's like a polyrhythm. Yeah, it's like a crazy, like a really complex polyrhythm that makes it's like having 2 meters at the same time, but you're it's like the clave is in a different so the clave is in a different tempo. It's like having 2 tempos at the same time, right? It's like you've got something that's at 160 and then you're having a clave that's at a different tempo over that, but you program it relative to the 160, so you have to make it 1916 or
even you could say like to do like some sort of replication of 4/4 at 160, you could do like say like 13/16 and do it like what would it be, like something like 4-3-3-3. So it's like you have one hiccup, so there's always a hiccup that comes out of it, which is kind of the interesting thing to me.
Just to turn it around to bring it back.
Yeah, I mean,
you mean so that you don't have to do a 9 million repetition cycle to have it come back around. So
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, I mean it's like metric modulate, right? Like I mean you could it's like a hyper complex version of what Tony Williams is doing 2 against or like 2 against 3 and then it turns into just that
Mm-hmm.
other tempo, the whole band goes into that other tempo, right? Like metric modulation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Word. So you've been you've been doing that for a while. That was like a sort of thing that you kind of like that was like the first like kind of out there thing you were doing on a personal.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like I was doing like pretty complicated sounding jazz stuff before that, but again, nobody wanted to play it, so that's when I went into laptop territory.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because it's like I've thought about that with electronic music. It's like the idea of like, oh, like I can't get people to play this, so I'm gonna do it electronically. It almost casts a dark. It makes it seem retrospectively like, man, getting quote unquote getting people to play stuff is kind of like it's like, is that dark? I mean, you're basically just. I mean, if there's no interpretation or collaboration or whatever, if it's just like strictly notated, it's like that you're basically just dealing with like cybernetic. Right? I mean, you're just like programming people. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, why not just have a computer execute it precisely? But then, I mean, then you get into the whole thing of like, nobody wants to hear something that's totally synthetic and precise. So,
yeah. Well, people do with electronic music. I don't know. It's like, that's some funny stuff also, like the sort of associations. Like if you hear electronic music and it's robotic, the rhythm is super robotic, it doesn't register as like, oh, that's uptight or in because that's what you expect. And if you hear a human being is playing it like that, you're like, damn, this has like no feel or whatever.
Totally.
Yeah. But yeah. So like, so you're still but yeah. What you're doing now is basically yeah. Well, how did so okay. So yeah. So how did you end up getting right? So okay. So that's just like programming really complex electronic music, right? So like what so how did AI come into it? Because you said you were like interested in AI, but I mean, how does AI? What the fuck is AI, dude? I mean, I know what it in theory is, but I don't interact with AI except insofar as it mines my brain and body for information. But I don't know how you make one. What is one? What are they?
So I mean, like I guess AI is like the sort of romantic notion of it, and like these neural networks are like I'm not good enough to explain it or like to actually use it. And I feel like a lot of people criticize people who use AI too readily because it's like you can do this better with something that's a lot less computationally expensive. But there's this kind of thing where it's like these embedded weighted nodes that eventually put something out. But I'm not good enough to explain the neural networks. I mean, like there's deep learning, there's like convolutional neural networks. I don't know if you've seen this stuff like the GPT-3. Dude, people are like, this shit's crazy. Like I've been using it to try to write the lyrics for Illuminativist. You can like give it some prompts and it will just generate stuff. Like people have generated like Eddie Murphy and Jerry Seinfeld doing a stand up together, and it's semi passable. Like you can definitely tell like Jerry Seinfeld wouldn't swear this much, but like
right. But he does ask like what the deal with things are and stuff. Yeah. That's crazy, man. So what's a weighted node? Maybe I don't need to. Maybe.
I mean, just like. I guess it's kind of like recursive. Like I'm probably full of shit when I say this, but it's like recursive stacked probabilities that have their own likelihood of happening. And so as you train it up on more and more stuff, then it's likely to know like, given this, it's likely to do this. And so once you have enough sort of like predictive information, then you can generate it. So like with this GPT-3, basically it bases everything that it generates on the previous word. So it's like there's a good chance that it will be this word because of the previous word. And yeah, it's a little bit complicated. And like there's this whole idea of like Markov Markov chains or something like that. So yeah, it's about like if this happens, what's the likelihood of this happening versus that? And
Yeah. Because there's a certain level of understanding I want to get to this. Just on the, I mean, I know there's a limit, but right. Okay, so you're programming it. You're like, if the Seinfeld AI says, "What's the deal with?" There's seriously, I mean, there's like a 50% probability he's gonna say people who, and there's a 25% chance he's gonna say when.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then if he says when, then there's a 50% chance he's going to say something about pets, and a 25 is that
Something like that, yeah. And I mean, the juice comes that it's trained up on so much information. Like with the GPT-3, it's like trained up on basically the internet, and so it can say things that are based on sort of all this accumulation of culture.
right?
But this being said, I don't really use any AI for anything. I'm much more like a little bit, as you could say, like homegrown sort of systems.
So yeah, What's what would be systems and not AI?
Well, I guess like, do you know Code 9?
No, the musician or
Mm-hmm,
the.
yeah.
I've heard some of that. It's very interesting music. Yeah.
He's working on this thing where it's kind of like this AI oracle, and basically he's fed his like record label's catalog to it, and the stuff that generates isn't that interesting. But when he generates basically like just something based on the waveform, like it will try to replicate the shape of the waveform, and then everything else within that is sort of new material. That's apparently working better. But for me, I'm more like I'm trying to like just take like a random number generator and filter it into some sort of logics. So I'm doing something that's a lot sort of messier and not as like elegant, and it's not like as intelligent. It's more just like probabilistic systems.
Okay. Like what does recursive mean with respect to this stuff? Is it like it studies the stuff that it generates? I mean, like with AI?
Well, with recursion, it's like you're kind of like continually embedding deeper and deeper into like the tree, if you will, the tree structure, like the branching of it. Like that like Drosty like hot chocolate or whatever, where it's like the hot chocolate box, and then you see the lady on the front holding the hot chocolate box, and then the lady's holding the hot chocolate box.
Actually, I do. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Wait, so how is that? Wait, so keep going with that.
So that's basically that's recursion, is like this continual embedding of something.
So that's part of AI, but not part of what you're doing with your stuff. Or is that also part of how your stuff's working?
It's not really part of what I do. But I mean, I guess it's definitely like a part of AI, because AI is so big, and I really I shouldn't try to explain anything about it because I'll botch it. But
I know, yeah. Well, no one will call you out in my viewership,
beautiful.
but I don't know though. I'm branching out like the tree of life or the Markov chains. I don't know. Okay, so it's like as far as what you do, yeah, right, like your stuff that you do know about, like. Yeah, let's stick with what you definitely like what you are specifically doing. So so the system stuff. So you got like a random number generator.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with the carry track stuff, it's kind of like I was trying to generate forms, like song structures, that have some sort of proportion to them, and then within that have a degree of uncertainty that's filtered through some sort of like set of parameters that create something that sounds reasonable. And so with carry tracks, that stuff's a lot more like I like to think of it as like pantonal in the sort of like Slonimsky sense, like that, thesaurus book that I don't know if you're hip to that, but
I haven't. I know that's the book. That's what Coltrane studied from a lot,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, and yeah. So it's like multiple things in different keys at the same time, or
I guess like pantonal is kind of like it's essentially like diatonic, but where there's this like lack of hierarchy. Like you aren't thinking about tonic and dominant. You're just kind of like this that is more just like almost like pointillist. Like there's no like it's how do I say it? It's more like a just freely associated palette within a mode.
yeah. No, I feel you. Yeah, saying non-hierarchical, I could see that. Yeah, it's not like there's no tonal center, but it is in like a diatonic scale.
So I've always liked that type of stuff. Like I've just like I was into metal so much when I was younger, and then I like getting into jazz, you progressively just are like, yeah, I like major seventh chords, and like actually like Lydian chromatic stuff like that George Russell shit was a huge phase for me. And it's like in my mind, like Lydian is always this sacred, wonderful thing.
It has such a vibe, man. It really is something. It really is something. The Lydian mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then gradually, like I realized I'm just not that comfortable with chromaticism. And so actually, when you did the video about like evil and black metal, it sort of got me in this whole thing of thinking about the like sort of implications of various music theory aspects. And like so then that took me on this path down like making death metal and trying to think about like like I don't want to have any pentatonics present. I don't want to have any sort of like typical like super diatonic at the gates shit or whatever,
Right.
like
Right.
and so like I start asking all these questions about like what is like like what's the sort of harmonic or like pitch class set nature of black metal. And I have some answers for those, but like it's just this whole process of like going through and cataloging and indexing what you think each pitch class set has to do with. And so now I'm thinking a lot more chromatically and sort of like in terms of sets. And I feel like for me, it's really about like being arbitrary to some extent. Like I don't know if that makes
Yeah. I was just about to say, when you talk about a pitch set. So yeah. Okay. So people who listen to this tend to be music nerds, but not necessarily like, I don't know. I try to gauge. I try to, So yeah, when we're talking about like a pitch set, would you say pitch set or pitch class set?
I said pitch class set, but I'm just being that guy.
No. That guy is Bartok, so be that guy. But like, yeah. I mean, well, like, yeah. Okay, it's like, I mean, a pitch set is just a set of notes that you work with, right? And but it's like it doesn't imply that any one of them is the main one, right? So that's like you're talking about like non-hierarchical, like a sort of not, like where you define you have like a pool of notes that you're working with, but no, there's no hierarchy. No one is more central than the other. A pitch class set, remind me, I can't remember. That's like where you have like, it's like a set of relationships between the pitches or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just like a set of intervals, and it's like it's usually, I think it's between 0 and 6, or like it's usually within 6 notes, because anything beyond 6 notes is like a reflection, within the octave. So there being 12 notes for anybody besides Charlie that's listening. You divide it in half, and so you have essentially 2 copies of the same thing. So with a pitch class set, like it's about saying like for instance, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or something like that. And so it has this formula for like where like the shape of the, I guess, the different pitches. And then you have the interval vector from that, which is like the amount of different intervals that are contained. And so if something has a high amount of like perfect fifths, it's going to have kind of this more sonorous, stable thing. But if it's more like it has tons of major thirds, it's going to have a more like augmented sort of flavor.
That's right. Yeah. That was, so yeah, like that. I understood what you just meant. That's probably because I had learned what a pitch class set was like a long time ago, and you're like reactivating it. But I think, yeah, I think the way to summarize that, like even less intensely, is that you've got a little set of there's like a pool. There's a pool of notes, and then you're getting a sort of a small relationship of notes that has a certain sonic quality based on the intervals that that result from rearranging those notes.
Yeah, and I mean you can do things like I guess this is kind of like a reduced version of like 12-tone stuff, or maybe not reduced, maybe more like modular or something. But usually 12-tone music has like a specific order about how it goes about things.
Right.
And I'm approaching it a little bit more like here are my 5 numbers. I'm going to sort of like work with them to generate some sort of form. And it's like for me, what I do these days is I like try to have some sort of connection between like the formal elements and the pitch elements and the rhythmic elements, which is a little bit of a pain in the ass. But yeah, I think that it's interesting to try to have things be reflective of each other in sort of like the way that like Stockhausen might have done that. So
yes. Cool. Okay. Let's keep going with that. Just I don't know why I'm getting like very anal on like making sure stuff's clear today, because it's like this is a more, this is one of the more technical chats already, that it's like we're not doing this like painterly like vibey shit. This is like very like literally. So summing up, that even if we're not talking about pitch class, just a pitch set, if you've got 4 notes, there's a bunch of different combinations, like pairs of those notes, right? Like if you can pair off those different notes, they each have different intervals between them. The available intervals between them are going to give that set a certain sonic quality, right? So just to let everyone, this isn't like randomly picking stuff just for the sake of being mathematical or whatever. These what you pick as a pitch set or a pitch class set has an aesthetic to it. You are making aesthetic calls with the pitch class set.
And so with some of these different pitch class sets, like I've started to ask these questions, because like you hear about like major as happy and minor as sad, and like these are kind of simple terms for like describing moods in music, but like is metal sad? It's not happy. Like, is it sinister? Is it like, and I don't usually think in these sort of like representational terms or like these adjectives or anything, but like I think that people think of major chords as not metal, and I'm like, I think it can be metal as long as it's kind of arbitrary how you got there.
Yeah. Well, what do we associate metal with? I don't know. Well, yeah, so much black metal, it's like there's a sadness, but ultimately it's about heroism, because it's not about sadness like boo-hoo. It's about like mourning the death of like a stronger type of man or something. I don't know, or like some kind of mourning a fallen comrade. I don't know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, the like assigning like straight up moods to just intervals or chords. Yeah, it can be like knuckleheaded, but it's like they do have vibes to them. I don't know, but I mean, I don't know. In the Middle Ages, I don't think Dorian was considered sad. Dorian mode, I think that was just considered the serious mode that you use to worship God. Wasn't like dark necessarily. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, is there like a mode that you associate with black metal, or like a mode that you associate with death metal?
I mean, when I think of black metal, let's just say that for these genres, we're talking about like the 90s iterations of it, maybe. I don't know. Like I think of with black metal, I just think of minor.
Like
I just
triads.
I just think of like minor mode, and then maybe a couple little extra guys in there. A couple flat fives, like a little bit of diminished stuff, and then death metal, I don't know. I think of there's like more. It's a lot more possibility of things being totally atonal.
Totally.
Or like diminished stuff that's hovering around diminished, which to me does sound evil. Like minor sounds sad, diminished sounds evil. I don't know. I mean, like maybe I am a little simple-minded on this in a way. Like, yeah, death metal, I think of it's like diminished, so it's like evil plus extra stuff that has like an even more alienating quality. Like because like totally atonal stuff is like alienating. I mean, that's
totally
right? I mean, it's cold. There's a colder than evil. I don't know. Indifference of atonality.
And that's sort of what I've been veering towards, because I mean, yeah, like the carry track stuff is very much like, here are some nice chords, here's some like Lydian shit, and like maybe I'll move it, in parallel or whatever. But with the limited stuff that I'm working on, it's very much about just like making it's like a way for me to play with chromaticism as freely as I want, which I've sort of like felt like I couldn't do until now for some reason. So
yeah, well, that's interesting. Yeah, because you were saying you didn't you weren't really into chromaticism at all when you were playing jazz, and then with carry tracks you kind of were like, you're like dealing with chromaticism, but right. So yeah, it's like you have trouble liking chromaticism when it's hierarchical. You want it to be integrated into a non-hierarchical set of pitches. Is that kind of
like more something like more modal, I guess, where I mean, or sort of parallel, like how in house music, like they move like just one chord and then like move it up a minor third and then back down. It's kind of this like oh, you had a chord and then you pitched it up, instead of like I did this, you know, contrapuntal harmony that moved it in contrary motion. So,
I know. I don't know anything about house music, but I know enough to know that vibe. Yeah. Where it's just like, it's just like a color, and then it's like turning it up. It's like a filter or something. It's like it's not like, it doesn't have that vibe of like functional movement and stuff. It's funny because I'm so on the complete other vibe of like, even if I'm not getting, even in my least anal moments, I'm still just like, this note goes up and then the other one goes down, and then it's gonna both go, like, like that kind of just like careful, like regulated, polyphony or whatever. um but like, I don't know, that thing of sets of pitches is kind of, that's very new music-ish, like composer-ish. And when I improvise, I get into zones that are actually more similar to what you're talking about. It's funny because my improvising is way different than my composing a lot of the time, and I kind of do what you're talking about to an extent of being like, oh, there's this like set of pitches, but I still get hierarchical though, because there'll be like the main ones, and then there's a couple ones that are like the less that like punctuated or something. But I don't know. But wouldn't that be like, wouldn't that, you could regulate that by probability or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I say that I don't want it to be hierarchical, I just don't want it to be sort of like typically Western music, like tonic dominant, leading tone type thing.
Yeah. So like, as far as the like, so the systems vibe for the carry track stuff. So you've got like, what are the random elements going on, or not random, but what are the like generated?
Oh, for carry tracks or Eliminativist?
Carry tracks, or is carry tracks all just composed? That's all just planned out.
It's I feel like it's kind of like iteratively improvised, if that makes sense. Like I sort of like improvise something and then improvise over it. Like it's done in one shot usually, like one session it's done in, but it's not done in one shot through the song. But it's kind of like, it's like I don't go back and revisit it. I'm just done with it. I delete the thing after I export it. Which is odd. It's a bad habit to have. Don't do that.
I don't know though. That sounds like that's a concept for you though, like an unprecious, an unprecious vibe maybe.
Yeah, and I mean the footwork people, they produce fucking hundreds of tracks. Like they produce like 20 a day or something. Like it's absurd. So it's about quantity over quality. And I mean, even though it's great, but I've sort of took that mentality, and the more you can automate that, like I think everybody basically already composes algorithmically, but it's a matter of making it like a system that you repeat. And so then as you can automate it more, it just becomes easier, and then you are like, I don't have to worry about this. I can go into like explorer mode and try to find some new sort of thing to fuck with.
I feel one notch dehumanized, man, and that's why we're here, dude. I want you to strip away this. I want you to strip away this almost religious conceit that we're not writing algorithmically already. Like, like you could do a I'm sure people are working on this, right? Like an AI that writes like Mozart, or an AI that
totally.
We should all search around for that. That'd be interesting. So like, but then,
all right, so I didn't answer your question, did I? About what the random elements are?
No, not yet. Well, you said, you said iterative. Okay, wait. You said that the carry track stuff. Yeah. What did you mean? Iterative, like.
I guess I just mean that I'm doing it sort of like in repetition. So like I'll go through and try to like establish something, and I go through and add another thing. So I mean, I just sort of keep on adding to it, but in a way that's not sort of like editing. I'll just go back and sort of let things pile up and start to interact more and more.
Okay, yeah. So just like add additive and like layering type stuff. And the so what's the indeterminate element, or the generated?
So basically, like I guess I would say it could be anything. Like maybe I just want to like start with a totally arbitrary groove, and so it's like you can choose a range of tempos and just like use a random number generator to choose a tempo, choose a random meter, and choose a random like set of bars for your phrase length, and so then you already have this like totally novel rhythmic structure. And when you do that, then it gets you out of your sort of habits and into some new interesting territory.
And so then you'll have that happening, and you'll like then play over that like intuitively. You'll layer some stuff that you're just hearing and feeling by ear
Mm-hmm.
over that sort of shifting, like
Yeah, or I mean,
generative.
even if you have like say 3 bar phrases of 15/16 at whatever tempo. So if you have 3 and 15/16, that's like you have 45, and then you're like, okay, now I have like this larger cycle to work with. How do I want to break 45 down? And like let's say that you wanted to replicate a 4/4 groove, then you can say like let me crunch the numbers here. You say like 45 over 16 for I'm saying 16 for 16/16, or you could say like 45 over 32 as if you're thinking of 32 as like 32 30-second notes, and then that will give you this multiplier that then you apply to the what would it be applied to the tempo of the other thing, and so it gives you sort of the formula for how to like replicate so that's not the random stuff, but like I guess arbitrariness in general is kind of like a goal. And so yeah, you can make anything sort of replicate anything in
Okay,
this
okay. I
model.
think I think I understand this. Yeah, yeah, totally. And of course, I think for myself and a lot of people listening to this, listening to your music, which we're definitely going to link to, will fill in some gaps of what it's possible to imagine. You know what I mean? Because it's like I think um, yeah. So then, and so okay, so like, and also yeah, genre wise, I'm interested in this. How it's like you went from jazz. This is sort of like less technical or like hard to wrap one's brain around. But I mean, just like you went from jazz to house derived club music, and now
Mm-hmm.
you're on like a death metal vibe. Kind of sounds like you're not really like your whole like you're not like going for like a cultural thing. You're like searching for like pure music. I don't know. I'm putting words in your mouth, but like this kind of I don't know. It seems like you're really engaged with like musical materials in this almost non genre way or something like that. I don't know, because we're talking about pitches and generating stuff and
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, like I mean, did house music? Did it sort of like organically? You were just like, oh, I've been listening to a lot of this footwork stuff, and I've got these ideas, and like, oh, what if I did them together? Or was it more like you're like, oh no, I want to like these ideas are like perfect for footwork. Like, you know what I'm like? I don't know, like how like
Well, I should mention that like before I was really into jazz, I was into like death metal and all that type of stuff, and I feel like I grew out of it because I was like getting into jazz, and I was like, you have to like be clean cut and like
right, right, right.
and so I sort of like left that behind, and so like I did appreciate that culture of it, but I don't know, yeah, I just had to get into the jazz stuff. I forget where we were going with this.
Yeah. No, no. Yeah. By the way, I wasn't saying like, oh, it sounds like you have zero investment in these. Like, I didn't mean it like
Oh
like
yeah,
it's pastiche. I just was kind of interested that it's like, I don't know. It seems like you're dealing with like unified, like, yeah, just that we haven't even been talking about genre. We've just been
yeah.
talking about like the materials themselves and stuff. So I guess I'm interested to hear. So now, like on the death metal stuff, right, or grindcore. Um, well, okay. So was that between carry tracks? The carry tracks is current, right? That's like
It's kind of back burner now, but yeah, it's still going.
word. And then, were there any other big projects or big strands in your creative life between the initial carry tracks thing and what you're and the new stuff, this eliminativist
Is
project?
the I feel like making sort of like functional stuff like meditation music or whatever, like like trying to like do something that's sort of somewhat programmatic, so like
Yeah.
like trying to make like little soundscapes and that type of thing, like that's always in the background. And just general like editing, like I guess I do appreciate just like dealing with audio in and of itself, and information on its own. And yeah, but nothing that's like a project.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Um, word. Okay. So then eliminativist. I mean, this must be pretty new, no?
Mhm.
Or have you been doing? Yeah. Because you didn't tell me about it when we talked a year ago. So it's been within the past year.
Yeah, I'd say like I got the idea for it maybe like 6 months ago, and I hit up my buddy, and he was like, "I'm down to do this." This dude, do you know Owen Hart, that band?
Owen Hart. No, I don't think so. Should I check him out?
Yeah, it's like this old or not old, but they're from Tacoma, where I'm from, and they played this fairly technical grindcore type stuff, and yeah, so my homie from that band, he's actually better at coding than I am, so he's sort of like trying to implement some of the code that we've been coming up with. But he's also a great guitarist, so yeah, I decided to hit him up, and then I was like, let's do this, and then it was like just coming up with sort of the beginning strands of this algorithm. And so, yeah, we've just been sort of like, I feel like we've tossed a bunch of systems and been slowly refining them. But the idea is to just have something that generates, because I don't know, like it's in this sort of like John Cage way where I want to take myself out of the equation a little bit. Like, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I have this tendency for these types of chords. And so everything's pretty set theory-ish and very like this isn't something I would naturally play just based on how it feels. Like I've always hated guitarism, if that makes sense.
I do know what you mean. Yeah, I mean just letting your fingers go what in the shapes that make sense and feel comfortable and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand wanting to avoid that. I also think it's awesome because I don't know.
Yeah.
Franz Liszt. I mean, this stuff is very like pianistic or whatever. But yeah. So but yeah, okay. What's the guy's name again? The guitar player?
Oh,
I thought it was I thought you were saying
Rusty. Yeah,
Rusty. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, he plays guitar and yeah for Eliminativist.
Yeah, and potentially tuba. We'll see.
Oh shit. Okay.
We're talking about doing distorted tuba, but that might be a whole other ball game.
Sonically, that would be great. That'd be great for Doom.
Yep.
It's quite a bit less agile in the guitar, right? But like,
yeah, absolutely.
But I guess so's bass anyway. But yeah, word. Yeah. So how does Eliminativist? I mean, what you played me. It's like very technical, like definitely atonal. Death metal or grindcore. Yeah. What's with program drums, right? Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always liked like Agoraphobic Nosebleed and Pig Destroyer and that type of thing. And
oh yeah.
It's funny, like I feel like the other day I was like, I feel like Eliminativist needs to like have this like sort of IT vibe. Like if we ever perform, if Corona ever ends, then like I want to look like we're like the IT crew. I was like, who's like the most IT like grind band? And it's totally Pig Destroyer. Like Scott Hall, I feel like is like the IT guitarist. That's just the vibe I get from him. So
yeah. No, totally. Yeah, no, I love it. There's a coldness to that, for sure. IT guys, man. Like, yeah, you're gonna do vocals on Eliminativist?
Not me, but like eventually, we'll find somebody. Yeah. And so the interesting thing about the vocal question is like, what are the lyrics going to be like? And like, I keep on sort of pointing towards grindcore instead of death metal. Like death metal is totally a perfect description, but like just me being like, a vegan who's like into like, like effective altruism and rationality. It's like, it's weird to like go around sort of continuing to glorify, like church burning and shit like that.
Yeah. You're very much not into Satan. God, there's a lot we're gonna talk about.
Yeah, I'm into Satan, but
yeah, but I mean,
LaVeyan sense.
Okay. Oh man, there's a lot to talk about. You don't have like a time limit, do you? Or like, or what's your? Yeah. Because I mean, there's. That's right. Because that was another thing: effective altruism, sentientism, the whole. The whole should get Diana Fleischman to do fucking screamed vocals.
I think about on the podcast, but yeah, she should be
about fucking she can scream about like the IQ of like shellfish or something, like that's sort of like mollusks and stuff.
Yeah, her justification for eating bivalves.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. No, that'd be awesome. Because this is a whole other world. Because okay. I want to talk more about technical stuff on Eliminativist, but I also want to know kind of your background, culture, internet culture-wise, because you come from a sort of adjacent, but not, this sort of rationalist that sort of hang that I like know about, but I wasn't really up in it, the past
Mm-hmm.
like several years. But before we get to that, yeah, like so what's the AI aspect of eliminativist?
I mean, so it's not AI, but it's another one of these like probabilistic systems, and like right now it's kind of in the process of getting it a little bit more fully automated. But it's kind of like take random number sets, let them sort of happen with these different probabilities, and let that generate a form, and then like sort of make it more annoyingly rhythmically complicated from there. And so like I'm experimenting with this idea of like if you have pitch class sets, why not have like meter class sets, and then like why not have tuplet class sets? And so like some of the shit like I'll like have these polyrhythms that I'm never going to be able to feel out until I like train them in my headphones with repetition. But like um I'll just try to like treat it like the meter is always shifting, and you can always do a different meter over the top of that meter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be extremely difficult to play, but kind of like turbulent. And yeah, so like I'll have random numbers that are filtered into something a little bit more, and I try to put it into a score that is like solid, and then I can learn it from there. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, I mean, it's basically like largely starting with the form, and like I was doing this thing for a while where I was like, I'm gonna make only 100-second songs because I was like really trying to lean into the grindcore thing. I was like,
Yes.
100 is a nice round number, so everything will be precisely 100 seconds, and uh, we come up with these different sort of like proportions, and then you have like this chunk, this chunk, this chunk, and you break it down to smaller. And you can start that way, like by taking the larger scale and sort of breaking it down smaller and smaller, or you can start at the small thing and build it up sort of multiplicatively. Um, but they both have their values, and yeah, so it's just kind of about rhythmic complication, taking these different meters, taking these different tuplets, taking different pitch class sets, and I still have to go through afterwards and like sort of clean it up and add a little bit of like idiosyncratic stuff. But
You're gonna add what, like just some like this sounds good, like let me cut this out type editing,
just like
or
this part needs like a palm mute, this part needs like some triplets or whatever.
nice. So that's conceptually, so actually to me somehow that conceptually takes it in this whole other direction. I don't know. Maybe it's not, but just from like a, I don't know, like I don't know, like do like the, just to add that intuitive, it makes it like at the last minute like you like care very much how it sounds.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, at the same time, like any sort of adjustment that I make, I want to eventually sort of add back into the code. So it's like, I'm not going to ever be able to code it perfectly from the beginning and have it make total sense. So like, sort of like if like, oh, this needs to like, lately I've been realizing that like there needs to be a little bit more back and forth between the guitars, like, the like, and
Yeah.
so it's like having that become a logic instead of just something that I go and correct after the fact. That'll be like, something to add in progressively.
That's right. Okay, yeah. So you'll edit, right? You'll edit for like a type of thing. You'll see a tendency that you want to have more of, and you'll insert that later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's sick, man. I mean, this is so up the alley of like Xenakis,
Mm-hmm.
more than anybody really, and Stockhausen, and the sort of the sort of integral serialism, right, from the 50s, and I guess
Mm-hmm.
and beyond. Yeah, was that were those like composers and inspiration for this? Were like getting into this, or were you coming straight out of just maths and then like later getting into them?
I was definitely into that type of stuff. Like my senior year, I got to take a post-tonal analysis class that I had to make a big stink to get into because it was a doctoral class. But so we studied some like various like set theory stuff in that, and that's where I got a lot of this sort of like started. And I've always been into like Webern and Boulez and that the type of stuff. And then
Yeah.
like I guess like I've always liked superhuman music too, so like non-caro and that type of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never got super into Nan Caro. I love Webern is my favorite
Yeah,
of that
100%.
of the second Viennese school. Yeah, and then he's so anal about the use of the row, the tone row, that kind of paves the way, right, for like this kind of. So yeah, like I mean, Stockhausen was doing this kind of stuff you're talking about, right? Like just in the sense of having a set of numbers like the tone row generating aspects other than pitch, generating rhythms,
yeah, or
and
dynamics or whatever.
or dynamics and stuff. So I know he was doing that. I actually don't. I guess Boulez too. I don't actually know like how much each person was getting into that. There's some little buzzing on the mic. I'm not sure if that's mine. Not sure if that's mine or yours. It has. It does kind of have a me sound to it, like my mic. Anyway, but
You hear it?
I don't know. Is that bothering people? Write in the comments if that's bothering people. In any case, yeah. So, do you ever read Formalized Music, that Xenakis book?
Fuck, I have not. I should though.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be the one to say you wag my finger that you haven't read it, but it's I tried to read that when I was like 20 and I couldn't. I was just like, I can't even deal with this. But I it's still on the shelf there, right next to these scores and stuff. Yeah, it's like his defense of his dissertation, of his like PhD dissertation or something. Yeah, because I know he was
I will
doing
say,
stuff.
like,
Yep, sorry. No, you go ahead.
I will say that you doing that video about Mick Barr's stuff. Like, I was unaware of that Ove album, or is that how you say it? Ove? That shit is,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it like tied some stuff together for me where it's like, oh yeah, it's about endurance and it's about like these kind of like minimal things, like this minimal approach, like maximalist minimalism, where it's more like, the stuff I'm doing is so complicated that's gonna be just a pain in the ass. But when you make it more like this minimalist delivery of maximalism, it's like that's when it's gonna actually land, right? So that's sort of like the turn that I'm taking now.
Yeah. I mean, it's if you want to really hear all this, the maximalism of it, I guess some elements have to be pared down to basically 1 or 0. I mean, if like you're not gonna have, well, I don't know. You could. I mean, well, in any case, yeah, just having guitar, bass, and drums, that's stripped the sonic palette down to something that's very monochrome. So at least you're dealing within that. I mean, that's a sort of a minimal aspect. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like probability, man. I mean, that's something that, I mean, yeah, a lot of this stuff, it's like you really do need to be working with computers for it to really do it. I don't know, because I know Xenakis. Yeah, I'm surprised you're not like way super up on Xenakis, because I mean, I'm only up on him like aesthetically, like listening, but I know he does like stochastic. I mean, he was like the guy to bring the whole like stochastic thing. That means probability, right? Or no? Or
Yeah, it's basically sort of like probabilistic randomness.
yeah,
or like a probability distribution that mimics randomness, basically.
yeah, yeah. He had some piece, I can't remember what it was, but something that like was dealing with like riots, like statistical or probabilistic stuff about like how people move during like riot. Like he had some thing where it was like tying together like statistics and probability in with just the chaotic, horrific stuff that he had like seen just like in his life, in Greece or whatever. But yeah, what a titan. Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm interested in kind of like, so like, cause yeah, it's like this. We got like this. I can see how this sort of the maths and stuff have sort of like crept into your life, and now it's like early on, and now it's like integrated with your music. I kind of I don't know, like what's up with internet, man? What's your internet? Where you hang out on there? Like,
well, I mean, so like we sort of jokingly talked about like me being a card carrying Bayesian, and like while I like to name drop Bayesian, this and that, I'm not actually like good at statistics at all. But so I guess like I would say I'm into like transhumanism, sort of the rationalist blogosphere, like your Slate Stars and your Less Wrongs, sort of this like sort of like Aspie adjacent world.
Aspie, yeah, Asperger's, yeah, just like total, yeah, coder scene, very like highly logical, centrist center. Oh, by the way, Zach, we'll get to your question about Ableton or the Dawes stuff a little later. They got questions. Have you been looking at the comments? Or
I don't think I can see them.
Oh yeah. View comments. You go over to the like on that thing on the right side.
Yeah. There we are.
Nah, it's good.
Information tech death. Yes.
I should have. Yeah. I should have. These people are cool, man. The people who watch this are awesome. Yeah. So the sort of, because I never really checked out Less Wrong. I always love the name, but I kind of have a sense of is it very aspied out?
I mean, there's like it's very like I'm extremely intelligent and I'm going to talk about it without any like, is that type of vibe? Yeah.
Yeah. The big brain. Yeah, the Wojak, the brain guy. Yeah, the brain
But
wave.
I mean, it's like I feel like it's a pretty. I don't know. Like when I started reading that stuff, I was like, oh, I get it. I'm smarter now.
You felt the increase.
Mm-hmm. So the whole Bayesian thing, I feel like it might not land as being interesting or important, but the gist of it is just kind of like scaling prior knowledge and like having a weighted credence of something or any sort of belief, like any sort of epistemology, and scaling it by new evidence. So it's just about these conditional probabilities updating. So like everybody talks about like updates and credences, and so like things like putting numbers on things. Like I, 80% chance on this, like in my mind, like it's applying the probability distribution to your credences and your epistemics instead of
what
likelihood.
what you think is likely.
Mm-hmm.
You mean like modeling how you think, algorithm, like doing models, modeling how you think as an individual based on what you think is probable.
Yeah,
Is that
like if you have some sort of sense of like how likely something is, and then you get more information, then you adjust based on that new conditional probability. And so like with things like like I guess like medical screening or tests or whatever like that, there's so many false positives that people don't take into account, and so that being a condition totally like alters the actual outcome to something that was sort of unintuitive.
right? Yes. And yeah, and this is and this yeah, I'm interested in kind of how this is like plugged into, because when we talk about like internet subcultures, it's almost like we're invariably talking about politics, but I sort of hate using that word too loosely because now it just means anything, you know what I mean? But it's like, so maybe I don't mean politics, but like sort of like social
Mm-hmm.
attitudes,
Yeah.
culture wars. These are cringe and like no longer really totally useful. But you know what I mean? I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
know that like Slate Star Codex. I mean, I heard about Slate Star. Okay, let's just bring it.
Mm-hmm.
You heard about me from being on Justin Murphy's thing, right? So that's like a right, wasn't that it? I mean, didn't
I
we
mean,
meet through that?
I've been aware of you for a while,
Music wise,
but
okay,
yeah.
cool. But that's how we started chatting, at least, or that's what jogged your memory, right, of who I was
Mm-hmm.
when we met at the coffee shop. We were like, oh, we're Justin Murphy, so right, so that's philosophy, to an extent, politics,
Mm-hmm.
if not entrenched ideology. It's talking about politics, cultural stuff, right? And so I only really have heard of like Less Wrong and Slate Star and that stuff as being adjacent to neo reaction
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of world. And that neo reaction realm and Moldbug and all that stuff, that was my first introduction to just people who even know how to solve a fucking math problem. Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, like literally just people. And I didn't even realize for a while. It took me a little while to realize, like, oh, okay, these neo-reactionary guys, a lot of them are coders. A lot of them are coming out of mapping, computer engineering and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of made me a little bit more interested in like your kind of rational, like the sort of like where you were spending time, and kind of like is the Less Wrong world, is that like the same type of people but less politically invested?
Like
Or
a classic post on Less Wrong is politics is the mind killer. So like they're all basically like sort of like ANCAP libertarian types.
There it is.
And
Yeah.
yeah, is that what you're looking for?
No. We'll expound. Keep going. But I'm like, okay, now I'm like, yeah, I'm grabbing onto stuff. Yeah, like super libertarian.
Yeah, like
And
just
cap.
valuing truth over other things. Yeah, having like
True.
sharp epistemology.
Okay, but truth. Okay, now we're gonna get. We're gonna start getting into the vagaries where I might actually be able to have something to say. But so true. So someone who's really obsessed with truth, they're going to be super libertarian. Is that? I mean, because I feel like you know what it's like. I feel like okay. It seems to me like you say ANCAP.
Mhm.
That's just like hyper capitalist. I mean, you like believe in capitalism. Why is capitalism and super deregulated capitalism? I'm interested in why that's linked to like people who are really obsessed with like objective truth, like this idea. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like why is capitalism you just I don't know. I feel like it just seems like because of the whole vibe of like markets and motivations and that stuff
I mean, I,
that kind of that way of looking at things makes sense to people who are super ass beat out and like mathed out. But is that necessarily?
I'm not sure what the correlation is, or if it's like one leads to the other or anything. But yeah, I think that most of them just tend towards that side. But then like there's like a Reddit called Sneer Club that's like kind of always just sneering at everybody that they love in the rationalist sphere, and they're all very a little bit more on the sort of like woke end of things. So that's kind of interesting to see that it's not all libertarians, and like they aren't right wing. They're just like free market capitalists.
Yeah, that's like a form of quote unquote right wing, but it's very different than I'm sure these people are not into like uh ethnic,
Oh
they're
no,
like
no. I mean, like most of these
just
people
like
are. Most of them are like into open borders and.
I would imagine, like zero identitarian shit,
Mhm.
no romantic, because all that side of the right is very like romantic, it's just like to be white, it's like not like it's not like statistic, it's not like very stats oriented, but yeah, like I wonder if just the ANCAP vibe is just like that's that's the way to be zero politics. I mean zero because what we have is capitalism, so just not fucking with it at all and just trying to objectively assess how it's working, right, would be the right. It's like purely descriptive. Like being an ANCAP, that's almost the most apolitical thing you can be, right?
Yeah,
Maybe even more than being an anarchist. Because to be an
yeah.
anarchist, you'd have to actually like intervene in what's happening, whereas like to be an ANCAP, well, ANCAP is right? But
Yeah, anarcho-capitalist. I guess like,
yeah,
and to specify like further down, I guess I'd like identify more with like the cypherpunk sort of brand of this. So like cognitive liberty, kind of like encryption, like OPSEC, that type of thing.
what's OPSEC? Sorry.
Just like security, basically.
Um, what does security mean in this
Just like encrypting what you say to people, sort of like just having your shit covered.
oh yeah, like the right to the right to have a completely encrypted internet anonymous network where people aren't messing with you and you can have your own cryptocurrency theoretically if you want or
Mhm.
whatever. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the implications of that are so intense to me. I mean, the reason I am interested in this stuff, even though the idea of being like an ANCAP is just this is like no, but I'm interested in this kind of thing where it's like systems where you're like, how are things working objectively now? Because sometimes I feel like people who are in this sphere are the only people who have the mental processing power to even assess what's objectively going on. Like that's what makes it hard for me to be political because I've got my like emotional vibes and my personality and my
Mhm.
this and my that. But I find it hard to get like super political anymore just because I'm so confused by just how things actually are working. Just
Yeah, totally.
just economically and just in information wise, I have this thing where I'm like, yeah, like the less wrong type, someone such as yourself is probably very like better equipped to even objectively, descriptively assess like how things are working with information. I don't know, like you're talking about epistemology. I mean, you're talking about modeling how people know things,
Mhm.
how people believe things, using models of statistics that are coming out of essentially computer engineering and information theory, right? I mean, that's what's necessary now.
Yeah, I mean, like I think
It's like,
that it's interesting. Like, there's this whole thing right now on Slate Star of like him responding to some guy on him responding to him about like technocratic leadership and that type of thing. And like I don't know how I feel about that. I'm kind of like a bottom up anarcho guy. Like I'd like to see some self-organization, like rather than like a top-down state thing.
Yeah. So there's like, sometimes with this like libertarian, I know like classical liberal is like it's like the least sexy label for anything, but I mean, isn't that almost kind of the vibe? It's just like classical liberal, but just like, isn't that kind of what libertarian is at this point? But it's just like,
I have
no,
no idea.
I don't know. I don't
feel
know.
like
Yeah.
I feel like somebody like Jordan Peterson would claim to be a classical liberal.
Right. Like, yeah. Well, that's like, right. It's like libertarian energy, but like not without the like cool. He's not cool. Um,
I'm trying to think of what other sort of internet worlds to point you towards. I mean, like the transhumanist thing is like a little bit ambiguous because there are like at least three probably strands of transhumanism. Like there's the kind of like Kurzweil, like the singularity is near, and like I want to live in the cloud with a female avatar, versus like I'm more interested in the sort of like David Pierce line. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
not at all. Yeah.
He's one of my favorite philosophers. He's interesting. He's like a lifelong vegan. Actually, I mean, his whole thing is a hedonistic imperative, and so like reducing suffering and improving vibrancy in one's life. And then sort of like he's the hedonistic imperative, but then like the slightly more radical version of that is like the negative utilitarianism thing. And so that's like somebody like Brian Tomasic, and like suffering focused ethics. So these people are like very anti-speciest. They have like concerns about invertebrate suffering, wild animal suffering, in addition to factory farming. And some of this stuff is like you read this and be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Like units of suffering per gram, or like suffering per gram per unit time and stuff like that.
I love it. No, because they're just like we're bringing empathy into this shit, by God, but it's gotta add up. Add up. You gotta be able to model it. Yeah.
The idea is that like the neuronal mass of insects worldwide is so vastly greater in scale than humans that it's like you should actually seriously consider animal or insect welfare. And that's a crazy view to a lot, but that's sort of like this more radical sort of like post-vegan domain.
Right. Well, they only suffer individually though, the bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. Well, okay, maybe we don't need to. Maybe, yeah. We can't stop at every single thing that I don't understand, or else it's just gonna like never end. But interesting. So negative utilitarianism is a thing that. Does that get into transhumanism, or are you saying that's just sort of part of that same scene?
Like a lot of transhumanists will be negative utilitarians or effective altruists, and effective altruists are essentially people who use statistics to try to determine how to do the most good with kind of the most bang for your buck.
Yeah.
And so I mean, those are just like fields that I'm interested in. What else is there? What other subcultures?
I like that. No, if I've heard of effective altruism, I feel that. Yeah. No, it's interesting though. So what I'm digging is that this transhumanist realm ends up actually. I just keep thinking about the I'm obsessed with just the idea of the human. I mean, I just didn't even, up until recently, I didn't even think about humanism. I didn't even think about secular humanism as just being a thing, because it's just like the water that we're swimming around in. You know what I mean? So it's just like I didn't even start to even think of that as a thing until I started checking out these super right wing cats. Who are just they're anti-humanist, maybe in the sense that they're anti-human rights or whatever. All these different variations on
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested in the fact that some of these transhumanists actually get anti-speciesist,
Mm-hmm.
like becomes almost less cold-blooded rather than more, or something, or less evil, if you want to call it that, or I don't know, like more concerned with suffering, like by breaking the boundary of what the human is, right? I mean, is that sort of
like the idea that humans should take precedence over any other animals, like I feel like they're questioning that. But with the transhumanist thing, there's also like there's the much more libertarian sort of California version, which is all about like life extension and cryonics, and like I'm sort of interested in that stuff to extent. Like I'd like to, live long enough to get into the cloud or whatever. But like, that's some like a little bit more like quasi-religious fun stuff. Like I'm just sort of saying that type of shit for fun.
Right. Yeah. So like, yeah, units of suffering, man. So yeah, so the transhumanist thing, it's like not so much. It's not so much about a project. It's not so much of a project. It's a cluster of ideas. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm most interested in the sort of Peircean school of like, the sort of like utilitarian world, and like a sort of post, or like a disciple of his is this guy Andres Gomez Emilson, who has like the Qualia Research Institute, and so they're interested in like valence, and like valence being like sort of just like the spectrum of well-being, and so they get sort of into like more pharmacology type stuff, and like sort of psychedelic science, and just improving like brain states and that type of thing.
Okay. Okay. So like trying to look at very scientifically about suffering on levels that go far beyond physical suffering, where you're actually looking at neurochemical things about emotions and experience and affect,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to deal with that on a technological level, or trying to.
Yeah, like the way that stuff like intersects with the effective altruist stuff, I guess, is like like cluster headaches, for instance, are like one of the worst pains that you can experience, and there's a great cure for it that works effectively, and it's just illegal, but it's a cheap, effective thing. So it's like, why not attack one of the worst pains that you can experience with a super easy thing to use? And that's kind of like, it's like that Pareto thing of like, I'm getting 80% of the work done with 20% of the effort, instead of like getting 20% of the work done with 80% of the effort.
Mm-hmm. So this is when people talk about being a utilitarian. That's
Yeah, like effective altruism, I guess. Just
right.
trying to do things in a way that's like potent.
Yeah. Yeah. This yeah, these worlds, man. Yeah, it's like what's the what kind of music do people in those realms listen to? Is it really varied?
This is something I'm curious about too, actually, because like I don't think that they listen to music. Like there's like one podcast, like sort of like jokingly, like a religious text of the organization is like Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, which is this Harry Potter fan fiction by somebody who's never read Harry Potter, and it's just like meant to instruct people on like these sort of like inner mechanics of rationality. But
Mm-hmm.
what am I going on about that for? What was I talking about that?
Well, I was just asking like what putting you solo, man. No, I was just asking you what people yeah, like what these people in the rationalist, the less wrong realm, what they listen to, just what the aesthetics are,
Right. So on this podcast, the intro music is like this dorky as shit MIDI stuff, and I forget who does it, but like I looked them up and I was like, what? Who is this? Like, and it's the idea that some of these people would know that music, but not any other music. Like, I feel like I just get the sense they have no taste in music, or like
Yeah.
don't really listen to anything.
It's so weird to me. Yeah, I always want to know. I feel like I can get the finger on the pulse of an internet subculture by what they listen to, but it's like it's not it's not always clear. I
Yeah.
know. I mean, like, yeah. I mean, most woke stuff. It's like indie rock, and like, I mean, that's a little bit. Well, see, it's like in the more woke zones, it's a little easier because people aren't hiding who they are, because they don't, like, their jobs aren't at stake or whatever,
Hmm.
you know. But
Yeah. I
but
think they would
also,
just listen to corny shit, like really corny shit.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the other thing. It's like, yeah, like woke people have like way cooler probably taste in music than any other political or social realm,
Hmm.
because they're actually like social human beings who are like plugged into reality, the world, although also plugged into numerous delusions from the world.
Hmm.
But yeah. I kept trying to figure out what like neo reactionaries listen to. It's just like so unclear. It's
Yeah, that's a
like,
good question.
It's like people like pretending that they listen to like Schubert all day, but it's just like posturing is like not real, you know? It's just like the like return to tradition thing, and it's just like you don't know this, like, you know, it's like you can't name the third movement of that string quartet. It's bullshitters. But
Man, if my signaling was about Schubert, then that'd be fucked up.
well, it's biting off a lot, you know what I mean? If you like,
Mhm.
yeah, if your posturing is, I just keep making fun of like the trad vibes. Yeah, like if your posturing is just like the history of the West, I'm like, dude, you have a lot of homework to do, man. If that's your your flex or
Yeah.
whatever, you know. But yeah, signaling, man. See this kind of thing is interesting to me, man. Like just even like you just say the word signaling, right?
That was a
That's
buzzword.
like that's like well, see, that shouldn't be a buzzword because that's just I mean
Mhm.
to me that's not like some like oh wow man you're like modeling information systems to it's like no like yeah signaling people signal on the internet
Mhm.
but I am continually like appalled really actually at like how many of my actual friends don't even really understand that they're signaling on the internet,
Mhm.
you know, and it's not even you know, and I'm trying to explain. It's like, dude, it's not that you're lying. I mean, no one's calling you a liar. It's just that things are performative and you signal this thing and there's rewards and punishments and you're doing it. I'm like, you didn't get that? Like, I'm not like being cold blooded here. I'm just, it's like, seems pretty obvious. But like, you know, I'm just so interested in how, like, in certain scenes, in certain like woke kind of realms or whatever, that's like not even on the table. And then you get into like a rationalist kind of realm. And it's just like, well,
Mhm.
of course, yeah, the signaling things and there's these like incentive structures and then that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm really interested in that, like incentive structures, like ideas like that, cost, you know, social
Totally.
costs, social penalties, like how this because yeah, you're talking about like epistemology, like being modeled in some information. Like that's harder for me to get, but like I feel like seeing how social subcultures work and ideologies get formed.
Totally.
That's interesting as hell to me, based on signaling, technology, rewards and punishments. You know,
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know if you follow like ContraPoints at all.
I do. You know, it's like yeah, her points are like they're so normy, but like she's just kind of such a likable. You know, like I would
Yeah.
love to kick it with ContraPoints. You know, but yeah,
Just the
but
idea that like she could get in trouble with the community for using a sample of Buck Angel, who's like, you know, somebody that paved the way for you know, like a whole class of people you know, early on as a transsexual porn star. Like
yeah.
uh, it's just ridiculous. Like you have a sense of history.
Right. Well, that's the thing, you know. But she can like, yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're at that level you know, you're like that big, and
Yeah.
that's that much. I mean, you've got to be up on what the signals mean, you know,
Totally.
on what they. I just like it's so hard to like. I don't like being coy, man. You know what I mean? Like I
Mhm.
don't like being like, oh, like in group, like or like whatever. Just like saying. I mean, I don't know. Like I like talking about signaling. I don't know. There's just something like I don't know. Do you get? I mean, you feel what I'm saying? Like I don't
Mhm.
like using a buzzword. It's like I only want to use a buzzword if it's like this is necessary to explain an idea that doesn't really exist without this word, and I want people who don't even know what's the idea of like signaling something on the internet or virtue signaling or what's the opposite, counter signaling, virtue signaling or counter signal, you
Yeah.
know,
Give me something.
like yeah, like if you don't have a concept for what that is because you're so like out of it, then yeah, you need to hear the word signaling, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then that would lead you to have a concept of an in group and an out group or whatever,
Mhm.
you know, like that sort of is rational. But see, you know what it is though? It's like talking about things in that way. It's like it is that information systems like rational, yeah, dog whistling. You know, it's like that. When you start talking about stuff like signaling, information theory, that kind of shit, it's like you get into that rationalist type, more like less wrongy kind of way of looking at things. It gets into that like bird's eye view where you're like not identifying with a group or you're like placing yourself above, like you're no longer invested in. It's like if you start talking about how ideology works, you've already detached from subscribing to one.
Mhm.
Don't you think? In a way, like
I suppose so. Yeah. I
like
think so.
well, just like Like if I describe how the left thinks and works and signals to each other, and then I describe how the right signals, those are two binaries. It's not literally just down the middle, but but then if I'm like, oh, this is how, this other subculture sees things, what they think is true, how they signal to each other. If you like just even describe that objectively, people are like, oh, so like which side do you want? Like what do like
Mm-hmm.
you don't believe in your own group, like
Yeah.
just because you're like able to describe how your group works, because it's not
Yeah.
transparent to you. You know what I mean?
I feel like you should be able to like make observations about patterns that you see without it sort of having any implication about who you are, you know?
Yeah, I mean if the thing is really happening, you know what I mean? It's like that's like, yeah, I don't know, like, yeah, it's like this thing of like you write racism sucks, you get on a tweet, you get 100 likes. So then if you start being like, okay, well, you were signaling to certain people, there was a certain benefit that you got, it was low cost, whatever, and you start looking at it like that, people are like, wait, so you're not invested in the idea that racism sucks? You know what I mean? Just because you're like detaching
Mm-hmm.
from a moment, it's like people think you're being like cynical. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? People think you're like devaluing the idea by like describing how that idea works in a network of other ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's like a weird thing. What do you think about reality forking?
I don't know anything. I mean, I've heard that term before, but I don't know what you mean by it.
I don't know exactly what I mean by it, but it's some shit with code where it's like basically just trying to assess like how some of this QAnon deep statey kind of do you know Jordan Hall? Do you know that
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
guy? Yeah. So I mean, I think I heard that from him, where I think where it's like you're talking about. Well, I guess like with code, right? When people are writing code, people add to the source code. I can't believe I'm like telling you something about code. This is such sued stuff, but like there's like main code that everyone's working on, and you add things to it, and those things are called soft forks
Mm-hmm.
that go
Okay.
off, and they fork off, but then they like can branch back in, and it's like expanding the code or whatever. But then there's hard forks that go off and like can't, in some way they aren't assimilable into the source code, so
That
they
makes sense. Yeah.
have to go off and become their own thing, like something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people are talking about it as like ever since like legacy media, or like the sort of has been sort of challenged by the internet. It's sort of there's been this crumbling thing where it's like people's realities have hard forked to the
Mm-hmm.
point where like it's not just like opinions about what to do. It's not just disagreements about what's right and wrong, or about like it's like there's just fundamental assessments of what's
Word.
happening in reality that cannot be brought back. Like if you're into like deep state type
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I don't know. Do you see that as a problem?
I don't know. I mean, I do. I guess I see a lot of people that I know sort of veering off in one direction in a way where I'm like we have some fundamental differences now, but I don't know. I feel like hopefully shit will sort itself out.
You do. This is optimistic. So like truth, like you do believe in like that certain things are actually true. Like
I mean, yeah, like I think that there's like to say 100% probability is stupid. To say 0% probability is stupid. But there's a lot in there that isn't like you can have still very high confidence on something without it being 100%.
right. Yeah. Cause I don't know. There are like I don't know. I get this vertigo a little bit sometimes where I'm like, it's never about a specific thing. It's never like I'll read some QAnon stuff and I'm like, whoa, what if that thing is true? Usually the specific thing is just cockamamie. But I do get these moments of vertigo where I'm like, I'll hear people say things that seem disconnected enough from reality, and I'll see mainstream media outlets say things that I know are disconnected enough from what's objectively true
Mm-hmm.
that I get this vertigo feeling where I'm like, what? I really start to question what I know, what I
Mm-hmm.
actually know to be factually true in the world. I get these tastes of that vertigo, and that hard forking reality shit starts to really mess with me because it stops even being about ideology, and it starts to be about like what you actually think is really objectively going on or not, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
yeah.
this makes my mind go to sort of another like subculture, and so like being so interested in rationality, I'm really interested in like the map and territory and epistemology. But there's also like the post-rationalist school, which like
Uh-oh.
everybody wants to debate what this means, and it's a worth like a stupid debate to have. But just kind of like rationalists who eventually are like, cool, I read the less wrong sequences, and now I'm like over it, and like I
They're
like to.
called sequences. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh yeah, like read the sequences. For some reason, they're called sequences, but
Oh, that's so sick. Because that's a medieval music thing, right? The
that's
sequences.
good.
Oh, dude, it's so sick. Talk about embedding. It's like where you'd like start to extend a melisma, like the Alleluia, the last syllable would extend into like more and more complex melismas, and then they would get so hard to remember the long melismas that you'd start to write new lyrics to fill up new text to fill up those melismas, so you remember them, and then they become their own
Mm-hmm.
little
Interesting.
thing called the sequence. Anyway, whatever. But yeah. So post rationalist community.
So the post rationalists, like on whatever it's called on Twitter, a lot of them sort of like are dabbling in this like occult stuff, and like sort of more like chaos magic-y, or like meditation based, or like like Daniel Ingram and his sort of like hardcore meditation Buddhist stuff.
Okay.
So like then a lot of them are coming in with chaos magic, and so that's a world that I'm interested in as well, because it's kind of like about results, and like epistemics are a little bit to the side. It's like instead of the map and the territory sort of being the thing that people talk about, it's more about like like what was the saying, like nothing is true, everything is permitted, or something.
Yeah, nothing is
So
true, everything's permitted. I mean, I've heard. Yeah, is that the chaos magic
I
sort
think
of?
so. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my like my sort of response to the map
Uh-huh.
and the territory obsession,
Yeah,
because it does work.
it's very Nietzsche'd out. Like the nothing is true, everything's permitted. Um, I'm interested in magic for sure.
Mhm.
I'm interested in the history of like alchemy and stuff like that, and the Hermetic tradition. The post-rationalist thing, I'm gonna have to check that out. I don't. It's interesting. It's hard for me to actually imagine how that comes off of the sort of less wrong, like hyper-rationalist thing.
Yeah,
But
I feel like it's criticized for sure.
yeah.
It's like what were you spending so much time learning about probability for, if you're gonna just like go and be like, whatever, nothing's real. Uh,
Yeah. Well, maybe if you're a certain type of person, to sort of harness your powers
mhm.
that are not quantifiable yet, or something, to sort of
Mhm.
harness those magic faculties, you have to sort of have powered up on some hyper rational stuff, because that's just how you're constituted,
Mhm.
or something. Like it's
Mhm.
just like just have activated yourself over the years. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, wait. So you said you think chaos magic works? I'm not saying it doesn't, but
Yeah, I mean, I feel like any of these sort of like mind technologies or whatever tend to work. And the thing, like, I'm more interested in the chaos side of things, just because like I feel like it's more like open source and kind of like anarcho than the other stuff. Like, I don't want to have to like wear some cape and like like prance around in a checkered room. Like, like I'm not into the prancing and the like the showmanship and like the pageantry and all that. So I'd rather just be like, I'm going to like like NLP or something, like are you hip to that?
neuro
Like,
linguistic programming.
yeah, like I feel like that's like the same shit, right?
I'm not hip to it though. Actually, I just
Oh.
know the acronym.
Sort of the idea of
Yeah.
just like programming something into your subconscious mind to have that do the heavy lifting, and sort of like you know allow you to just like get something done.
Right.
It seems to work. So
Right. It's like that. Yeah. You're basically, when you say it works, right? You're talking about like magic. That's sort of a cult side of like almost self help that's taken to the level, like how to make friends and influence people.
mhm.
Taken to a just like telekinetic like level, or something, of just
Yeah.
controlling the world with your mind, like that kind of vibe.
Yeah, and actually, since you mentioned like influencing people, like the persuasion sort of like Cialdini, Robert Cialdini, I feel like that's big in the less strong community, even though they refer to it as the dark arts, because it's essentially like persuasive manipulation.
Yeah. And does that, I don't associate that world as overlapping with pickup artist type stuff, but it certainly would on the manipulation angle,
Totally,
right?
yeah.
I mean, you could, but these dudes are so ass-beat out, they're not even trying to fuck, right? Or maybe, I don't know. But I'm just, it's a fucking asshole. I don't know.
Dude, that's the other thing. Like, you're like, what type of music do these people listen to? And I'm like, with any sort of intellectual hero of mine, I want to know about their sex life. Like, I want to know if they fuck.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, that's with these folks. It's like, what's the vibe, Like, yeah.
I'm trying to think of an example that we could infer.
I don't know. A guy like Nick Land, he's probably just like a, like a sort of, yeah, he probably just like has a wife and like doesn't really cheat on her, and he's a good dad, and he's fucking, stiff upper lip, like wasp dad or whatever. I don't know. Like, ContraPoint's fuck. She has fun, I'm sure. Yeah.
Like, how much do Jeffrey Miller and Diana Fleischman actually fuck?
I know, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I feel tacky. It's like, I don't know, like, well, they're like on that polyamory vibe, which I'm like,
true. So yeah, they're fucking.
Dude, I get pretty when I hear about poly. Some of my friends watching this are gonna get mad, but I get a little trad, man, when I hear about that. I get a little based. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, man, that might be working for you, but you're in the minority, man. That does not work for most people, man. That's right. I mean,
yeah, and I mean, these people that are into it, I feel like they are aware of the sort of like innate programming that they have that makes them want to not do that, and then they're like, I have to frontally override this,
Right? You think it's a little bit contrived, right? It's a little bit like.
I think that like it's a good idea. Just we're like born with like monkey minds that aren't really equipped for it. So it's like if you want to put in the effort to like get over any sort of like jealous reaction, then like sure, spend your time on that. But
right. I mean, that's what. Yeah. Because it seems like that's one of those. There's like this imperative. It's not an imperative, but people feel like this thing of like, like that. It's almost political or something. It's just like, if we're really going to be free, if we have to break out of this, Yeah, like I know this woman who was talking about. She's just like singing the blues about like, she's like, yeah, like my triad fell apart. It was like a lot of drama. It's like the woman started getting all jealous, when I was like blowing the husband in front. I was like, man, you don't say. Like no shit. Like color me amazed. Like yeah, like but yes, polyamory. Yeah, I don't know how these people. I don't know whether people fuck or not. I mean, the internet. I don't know. I actually kind of like. I get curious about stuff, but I am. I find it refreshing. I find internet subcultures that don't talk about sex and hedonism. I find them a little bit refreshing, just given the realm that I'm always coming out of. Where it's just like art types, liberal arts people, humanities, riffs. It's just so. There's just this baseline of hedonism that's like just considered so normal and like not questioned, like it's just this level of like pleasure that you're like supposed to be having or have had in your life, and everyone's always talking about sex as though it has this inherently interesting quality. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like,
do you think that black metal bands tend to fuck more or death metal bands?
Oh, cool question. Oh man, I can't believe I've never considered that.
Or like, how would you assume? Like, what credence do you place on? I'm curious about your answer. I just wanted to sneak some sort of Bayesian thing in there.
Well, neither. Well, lyrically and imagery wise, neither of those subgenres are particularly sexual. I don't know. See, black metal is all like romantic on the sort of hyper alpha warrior vibe, right? So that sort of would imply some kind of like, fucking a lot, but it actually gets more into the machismo of like semen retention and like that kind of rightist discipline, you know what I mean? That thing of like, it's like one must have like, focus on their wife. I don't know.
So you're saying that black metal people are NoFappers?
Yeah, actually, I would. Yes.
Okay,
I would imagine you're wasting magic, like mana points when you like spill your seed in vain or something. Yeah, actually. And then death metal. I don't know.
It's
I
all
don't
beer
know.
and pizza. Like I feel like that's the
It's
vibe.
all beer and pizza. That's not good for one's libido. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Nah, but there's a lot of lifter dudes.
Yeah.
Some of that shit is kind of raped out, you know, these sort
Mm.
of black and death metal, like sort of war metal guys that are all scary and shit. I don't know. That's an interesting that's an interesting question. I don't know. Uh, it's so fucking funny to me that anything on an ascending or Eros current is right wing. I know. Sometimes I like attributing, like really sloppily attributing these political valences to things because other people are doing it. So I like to just like join in. You know what I mean? Like just with these political, like the signaling or whatever. You know, people are
Hmm.
just like, I don't know. It's like right wing bodybuilders. It's like there's no reason why like being in shape is inherently right wing, but like subculture wise, somehow it just somehow is like just
Yeah.
online it is a thing. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah. Are you hip to like a BAP and that stuff?
Yeah, I'm hip to BAP.
Like coating
I
yourself in coconut oil?
yeah. I wanted to like I want to like BAP just on a like
Mhm.
edge, just on an edge level. Like I really do want to like it just to be like, yeah, like I'm up with the new edgy stuff, you know, but it's just like it's fucking not deep, man. Bronze Age, yeah, I have, yeah, it's right here. I have it right here. Yeah, it's fucking,
I just heard that echo.
yeah, it's not good. It's not good. It's like an eighth grade reading of Nietzsche. It's just Nietzsche and Mishima. Like that's it. Just, I mean,
Hmm.
I don't see what else is in there. I don't find it very funny. I don't know. But
Yeah,
maybe
it's
maybe I'm
ridiculous.
missing something. Some people that I respect respect him. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Why do you fuck with BAP or like?
Not really. No, I mean, like I read the book and I was just like,
Yeah,
like
it was.
there's some like some shit in there that I'm just like, dude.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm like, yeah. I mean, when they start just being like, I don't know, feel like trans people aren't real. I'm like, yes, they are. I mean, you know, I'm like, I disagree with you, but I
Hmm.
don't. I mean, but it's not even hateful enough. I'm not like disgusted or whatever. I was just kind of like,
Hmm.
yeah, it didn't rub. I don't know. It wasn't even scary right wing enough. It's not even like fashed out enough to be like fash. Like I
Hmm.
don't, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, as far as scary fashed out stuff, like Evola is the guy that's like, you know, I mean, do you ever fuck with him at all?
Hmm. Yeah.
He's like, I mean, that's basically just with this guy. You know, just like hyper right wing, fascist or super fascist Italian guy from the 30s, like you know that like mystical semen retention, like you know
Interesting.
hierarchy is the most valuable spiritual aspect of human life. You know, like that kind of shit. Um, yeah, that's not how I'm living my life, but he's that's not how I'm like treating people on the day to day. But it is he's a lot more coherent than BAP along very similar lines. You know, I don't know, more interesting.
I
But
love how much semen retention has come up in this conversation.
oh, just retaining the fuck out of that.
Are you hip to like Mantak Chia?
No, Mantek Chia.
Yeah, he's like this Taoist guy. He wrote like the Multi-Orgasmic Man, and it's yeah, he's into that type of stuff, and he has some like sort of like like what is it, like a Taoist therapeutic place in Thailand.
Okay,
Interesting dude, you know.
yeah, yeah. I could get more into this Taoist or Buddhist takes on that stuff.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, you know, like, see, yeah, we're joking about semen retention, but like, I mean, actually, I do think that it's a pretty valid critique of certain like the subculture that I'm part of and keep railing against because you get sick of your own people and you get sick of what you are and where you come from. But like the liberal artsy, indie, freaky, experimental, free jazzy, whatever world, I think there is a criticism to be made about like you guys like don't retain your semen enough. Like I'm not even talking about masturbation, but just on this
Mhm.
vibe of like I don't know, like in that world, if you're just like, man, I have 3 sex partners and I had sex like 50 times a week, people are like, awesome. I'm like, that's actually chaos.
Yeah, and I don't
I mean,
believe you. Like,
it's like, well, I hope people aren't actually, but people are living that way. You know what I mean? It's like, see, that's the thing. That used to be a macho thing. Like, yeah, like I fucked like 9 million women, but like now it's like it's not a macho thing. It's more of a like almost like a woke thing of like, you know what I mean? Like, check out how like self-actualized I am. Check out how unrepressed my sexual, especially if a woman is like, I fucked a million guys. It's like, I dare you to call me a slut. I'm like, I'm not calling you a slut. That just sounds psycho to me. I mean, it just if you're happy, I believe you, but like that's just like chaotic vectors of like sexuality just like coming at. It's like I know that works for some people, but I do the NoFaps semen retention thing. I do actually, I feel it. I feel that as a critique of just being like, have you no continence with your energies? You know, like have you no discipline? Like you just have to like. You know what I'm saying? You just have to like add every fucking attractive person on Earth to your like ever widening polycule until you're just like fucking all human beings on Earth. Like it's just a little, I don't know.
I'm sort of tickled by a lot of the NoFappers, like and just like the terminology that they use. Like, you know, they essentially think that they have superpowers. Like, have you read what they talk about?
I haven't, but that's an Evola thing where you just like you're like powering up and shit, you know. But yeah, what do they think they have, like psychic powers and stuff?
I mean, they'll be like, yeah, I was like on the subway and like my voice was extra low because I've been retaining for a long time, and then like this girl just like stopped, like wouldn't stop looking at me, and it's because of, you know, like my whatever.
But maybe it is though. Maybe that's good for that guy, you know? Like maybe it got him in the zone. His body was actually more relaxed, you know? He's like, oh, I'm not all tightened up because of sexual frustration. In fact, I am more relaxed because I'm not all fucking, you know, whatever, like jizzed out.
Yeah.
And it made my voice get lower because my chest was opened up, and that energy, this woman liked that. That's sick. Good on that guy. But I know it's probably ridiculous though, right? I mean, these guys are like,
yeah,
they think they have psychic
real weird
powers and shit.
I think that the death metalers like would love porn, pizza, beer, and like rubbing them out quickly. And I feel like, you know, death or black metal people, I imagine, are like a little bit more on this like religious tip.
Yeah. Well, there's the sacred. Well, yeah, that's the thing. I do think that sex should be sacred. I think it's different than other things. I do have a somewhat sacred, you know, or I think that it's I think it's a problem how desacralized it's become. I don't know. I know you're probably just like, oh Jesus, this is the most non I don't know. Like it just doesn't plug into any fucking
I'm just like
incentive structure map or whatever, but
I'm the king of harmonious marriage, so I'm just like I'm just enjoying myself.
Hell yeah. I didn't even ask. Yeah, well, I wasn't even getting personal and stuff. But yeah, you're married. Good, man. Awesome. How long?
I think 2 years now.
Hell yeah, man.
Something like that.
That's a beautiful thing, dude. That's a beautiful thing. I love it, dude. I love it. Yeah. I mean, there are a reason why we have norms, you know? For most people, it's a solid suggestion of what one might do for one's life. You know, if you're not sure, maybe normality has something to offer. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. So there's a sacredness, you know. But yeah, this isn't, I don't know. It's not prescribing this for everyone, but yeah, I feel like the death metal vibe would be a little bit more of a like I feel like, you know, like I don't know, there's a bro vibe. There's a bro vibe with talking about sex a lot, very freely in front of women in a way that annoys me. It bothers me a little bit. I find it ungentlemanly, and it desacralizes sex in a certain way. Yeah, I'm getting conservative, dude. I'm getting conservative with this shit.
I like being a gentleman.
I think that needs to actually, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like there's supposed to be, like we're supposed to be hyper vigilant about boundaries of consent and XYZ, but then it's like you're also supposed to just be like talking about all the sex you're having constantly. I don't know. It's like, yeah. I feel like people are just constant. I don't know. People are just so wild with this sex. I don't know, man. Just everything in like, I don't know. I mean, I watch this stuff. I mean, I watch trashy Netflix stuff, but I'm just, it's like, I don't know. I love the show Big Mouth, but I also watch, I also, while I'm watching it, I'm like, this is fucking degenerate and should not really exist. It really should not exist, that show. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like,
man, that PE teacher.
Yeah.
He says some gross shit. Like
it's not cool, man. It's not cool. So, I mean, I watch this stuff, but I'm starting to really have criticism of this stuff. So, I mean, it's interesting how, like, I don't know, like, like it does make me a little bit understand the critique being made by these BAP types, however knuckleheaded they might be about it. Like I am sort of understanding this thing of just like, dude, how about you retain, how about you put up some walls, hold yourself together, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess something interesting that comes out of that is like, right now, like gender studies is very, it's very much like women's studies, and there isn't a really good like model of modern masculinity that's like not kind of like corny, but like also not like toxic or whatever. I've been saying
I know.
hermetic masculinity.
You've been talking about hermetic masculinity?
Or hormetic rather, as in like
Hormetic.
hormesis.
What does that mean?
Like beneficial stresses like something kind of like an anti-fragile thing where some stress applied makes you stronger, essentially like hypertrophic, like I feel like I'm just name dropping.
Lifting weights.
Yeah, like there's something about it's that is slightly stressing but in a positive way, like essentially like fatherly vibes, like knowing how to like be like, no, this is the right way to do things, but without it being like just like shitty and toxic.
Right. Yeah. Like but you're thinking like that's missing, that maybe that's sort of missing from discourse or whatever, just like what's a healthy amount of pressure to put on someone else.
Yeah, I mean, like I was asking my dad like who he thinks like interesting like representatives for the male gender are, and it's like he said some sports guy, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
but like, I mean, who do you think is a good like example?
I don't even know, because I really think, I mean, gender is seriously, it's just getting like voided as a concept, you know what I mean? And it's like, if I get into, it's like, I don't, it's, yeah. I don't even know what masculinity even means. I mean, I know what it means to not be a fucking doormat, you know? I mean, it's like, but I don't know if that's masculinity or femininity. I mean, if we're talking about like, well, no, we should be able to talk about masculinity and femininity, but I feel like we'd have to talk about it not in reference to men and women, quote unquote. It would have to be like, I feel like the only way I can talk about that would be like masculine and feminine, as in like ancient Eastern philosophy, right? Of just like, penetrating, acting, thrusting, directional forces, and versus, receptive, enveloping, right? Feminine, like retractive energy. So who's a good example of that? And does it have to be a man? This is the thing. I mean, that's what's interesting to me, like does an example of masculine, I don't know. The guy from Queens of the Stone Age, I don't know. I'm just thinking. I'm just thinking in music. I'm just thinking in music because it's just like there's so few like awesome musicians now that are like performing like heterosexual, like robust. No, there are very few white musicians who are embodying that. There's plenty of black rappers and R&B artists who are fucking like absolutely embodying that. But like, yeah, as far as like white guys with guitars, yeah, I don't know. I mean, see, I'm all into boxing now, which is like, I mean, it's aggressive. So then I guess you would call that masculine, although plenty of women do it. I can't say these boxers are any kind of model of anything other than boxing. I mean, they seem like complete goons, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Freddie Mercury? I don't know.
It works. Proxus here says, I was wondering if you'd go into anti-fragility. I'm not sure if that means that you got me pegged as to my interests, but I mean, Nassim Taleb is like a funny example because he's like kind of like, he's machismo, he's kind of like like whatever, aggressive, but like he's great. I think
wait, who is I'm sorry, who
Nassim Taleb.
Nassim. Anti-fragility is Nassim Taleb's thing. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I want to know more about. I see him retweeted and it's like by some people. Yeah. So what is what's Nassim's deal?
Nassim's interesting. Like, I mean, he's a super smart, like, math dude. And what I love about him is that he just says that like straight up every psychologist is full of shit. He calls them IYIs, like, intellectual yet idiots. It's like actually like Jeffrey Miller, he like they debated on Twitter IQ stuff super hard like 3 years ago. And I mean, the verdict seems to be that Nassim owned him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was the IQ debate? What was Nassim? Did he think IQ was just jive or what?
He thinks it's worthless because he's like, it doesn't measure success by any, like, like, so what, you can rotate like shapes in your brain better, like so like it's not useful, I guess, to determine any sort of like success in life.
Well, it's not because
I
I
mean,
mean
it is, but like it's not.
yeah, I don't know because I mean I always hear people being like these sort of like rightist or conservative. They're always just like, oh, like IQ is quote unquote correlated with, or it's predictive of these life outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that gets into some like think confusing correlation with causation or something. I don't. But
yeah, I mean, Taleb would basically say like anybody using statistics in like psychology or anything like this is using it incorrectly, and so
right,
yeah.
right, and possibly in an ideologically motivated way.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Not more than possibly. I mean, it's like
yeah,
yeah. I'll have to check him out. Jeffrey Miller. I don't know. Do you like him? I don't really know his stuff that well.
I don't know it that well either. I know that he talks about signaling and like Evo Psych and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm always just with these pockets of reality. I mean, this isn't full on reality forking, but I am really interested in like pockets like Evo Psych or like even talking about IQ. I'm really fascinated with just the way I'm actually not really that fascinated with doing any actual homework on it at all because it's just like, nah, I'm a singer. Why do I have to give a shit about IQ? But I'm just as a marker of like, it's like this thing that like huge segments of intellectual, brilliant people are just like, this is completely real. It is completely predictive of X, Y, and Z. It is 50 to 60 for 80% genetic. This absolutely matters. Even people who are not racists or anything, just totally think this. And then you've got huge other segments who are just like, that's eugenics mumbo jumbo, like literally just fantasy. And so I'm just fascinated at the fact that like we live in a world where something that serious is there's that little consensus on something that major. That fucking blows my mind.
Totally.
That makes me feel like I'm losing my mind in a weird way. I don't know. Are you with Nassim? Are you with Nassim or Jeffrey on the IQ thing?
I mean, I'm not smart enough to weigh in, but I mean, I generally think that Nassim has better takes. Although I do get a kick out of seeing Jeffrey Miller just go off all about cryptocurrency these days on Twitter, which actually that makes me want to ask you a question that I was thinking about. Are you hip to this NFT stuff?
Non-fungible transactions. No. Tokens. See, I want to. Yeah, it's like don't tell me. Here, I'm gonna turn on the light here. We're getting to like. Yeah. No, I don't. Well, that's just Bitcoin, right? Or no? Or
so it's specifically like these non-interchangeable things where basically like people are sort of releasing like art now or like songs, and it's really overhyped right now. And so like people are selling these like little stupid gifts that you can get copies of elsewhere on the internet for fucking thousands of dollars. Like people are making millions of dollars in a night. And so it's overhyped. It's ridiculous. But like the way that I see it is like eventually this might offer some sort of like fix for like the bullshit with like Spotify, because, you can basically like have authentication built in. You can have like proof of scarcity. And so like, I'm thinking like, how does this work? Like maybe like if you like have like some sort of like individual level of like the Wu-Tang Clan thing where they put out that album that Chikrelli bought.
Yeah.
Sort of like if you had like a self-terminating album or something like that, like how does that affect the value of that piece of music? Like it ensures that somebody probably listens to it with a little bit more care.
Right. You mean so if you have like a file, you have these files that self-destruct, like a Snapchat thing or something. Like is that the idea? Like you like release an album and there's like 1,000 downloads of it, and then they like disappear.
With the NFT thing, I'm not sure if the self-destruction is worked in, and like I feel like it's very ambiguous what the fuck they are, but like it seems like it's basically a way to sort of like decentralize from something like Spotify. So like why do we need Spotify to host shit? Like, you don't.
I know. It's well, it's
Like, why
'cause
should
it's
we
all
be getting micropayments for intellectual property when like you could be getting
yeah.
paid for it in
Well,
full?
because it's just all there. It's just all there on that platform, you know. I
Hmm.
mean, I often just go to someone's Bandcamp page and play it,
Yeah,
or I just go to YouTube. You know, I don't know,
yeah.
but God forbid I actually like buy someone's stuff and then I complain. I complain when people aren't buying my shit. But yeah, like wait, what is proof of scarcity
Um,
in this case?
so I mean, basically, like, in terms of like Bitcoin stuff, there's like proof of work, which is more like just like how it runs, is like authenticating based on some sort of like computer that's doing all this number crunching in the background to verify the block or whatever. But with this like proof of scarcity, they're also talking about like proof of stake, proof of whatever, and all these other domains. And it's like, if you can prove the scarcity of your piece of art, then like I feel like scarcity is this like currency in and of itself, because like you want the rare thing, right? Like the
Right.
replica is less worthy supposedly than the original.
Well, so you're not talking about selling a song. You're talking about selling a piece of vinyl. You're talking about selling a
That's the thing. I'm not sure how it would work with music, because music is like digital these days, and so it's like by default sort of replicated.
that's what that's where I was going in my mind with this, with the self destroying things. Like, how could you put any limit on, anyway? Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like with these other things, like these little stupid like gifts that people are doing, like it's god awful art. It's fucking terrible, but they're selling for so much money. And the thing is, they aren't scarce. So like, when it eventually gets to the point where like there's like I feel like proof of scarcity worked in, I think it might be kind of game changing. But like I don't know, for the first time, I'm like, oh my god, can artists make money? So I'm just like I'm curious if you've heard anything about it.
Yeah. No.
It seems like it's a burgeoning field.
It's just one of those things floating around on Twitter, man. Yeah. I thought NFT. I thought it just meant Bitcoin. I thought that was it. I feel like this Bitcoin horizon like never fully comes, right? I mean, it just keeps, people just are so messianic about it, and then it just like doesn't happen. Like, I don't. I mean,
Oh, dude, it's coming.
is it? Is it? No, I'm not even. I'm not even I'm not necessarily I'm not necessarily bearish on it. I just like yeah, it just keeps not.
Ibix crew.
Ibix crew. Oh yeah, fucking Ibix, dude. Yeah. Bring good callback, man. Yeah, or we both did the callback. Yeah, fucking. I mean, the thing. Yeah, the fact that Nick Land is, the fact that he thinks that crypto. I mean, his thing about how blockchain. His thing is that blockchain is this final form of Kantian critique.
Interesting.
Now, I have only read the tiny little bit of Kant that I've read. I did understand, but I did not read enough of it to know what he could possibly mean by that. But that just seems like the coolest, most insane idea I've probably ever heard in philosophy. I mean, it's like I don't get it, but that's just so like it just seems so galaxy brain. I cannot help but stand that guy. Like, yeah, he's like the final form of Kantian critique or something. I don't know. Like, anyway, yeah. Kant, you fuck with Kant at all?
Don't.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, it's interesting. Like, so much of the stuff that you're into intellectually, like, I don't know a single thing about. Like I don't know anything about Deleuze or any of those dudes.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Deleuze is cool as hell, but I mean, it's really like it goes outside of it's really like rooted in philosophy, but gets into almost this aesthetic, poetic kind of painterly sort of like creative like thing, where what it means to quote unquote understand it is not black or white. It's not like hard line, but it is very much rooted in like continental philosophy. Like, so anyway, yeah, like yeah, he's still pretty in style. I don't know. He's still like kind of in style with the kids, Deleuze. I don't know. I feel like maybe that's like about to crest, but yeah, Land is definitely coming out of that. But yeah, man. Well, damn. I don't know. Maybe we could call it. I feel like we could go on for hours and hours, but I feel like that's a solid, good like 2 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes, dude. We'll have to do this again sometime, man. If you're into it.
Yeah, man. You're always welcome to come on, Bridge.
Yeah, awesome. Maybe we'll kind of just like regularly do something, man, because
Yeah.
I learned so much. Yeah, I'd say there's so much stuff you hit me to that I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna follow up on that. If I'm honest with myself, 24
Mhm.
hours in a day, I probably am not. But see, the more we hang, the more I could just get the tidbits off of you here. So
For sure, yeah. And I mean, I need to like embed myself in metal networks a little bit more because I realized I just have like you and Rusty. So
yeah. I'll send you some stuff. Are you? Well, I mean, but you go far back with death metal though to the beginning, right? I mean,
yeah,
So you don't need me to like hip you to like actual death metal and shit.
nah,
But
good. I just
yeah.
need friends.
Yeah, to just even vibe on this stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like there's so many good. I feel like there's just every year there's like good extreme metal coming out, but
Hmm.
none of it is like my new shit that really is doing a ton for me.
Hmm.
But like every time I look through like the profound lore and the $20 spin and the prosthetic, these catalogs, I'm like, there's all this good stuff, but nothing is becoming my new favorite metal stuff really.
Hmm.
It's just all like solid, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
Anyway.
feel like I just realized the greatness of Krallis, so I'm
Oh
like,
man,
yeah,
yeah. Well, that's yeah. That's some shit. Well, you know who are my homies? Who I mean, do you know Piron?
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So that's like some pretty. They have grindy elements too, actually, in addition to
Hmm.
the death metal elements and stuff. They're pretty special. They've got some shit. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, metal is not that shit is not slowing down though. That's for sure. Anyway,
No,
yeah,
we're good.
man.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks for
sick,
having me
dude.
on.
Thanks for coming on, John. Yeah. Talk soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. See you
All
around.
right. See you, man. All right. Thanks everyone for making the hang for the whole couple of hours. And is there anything to update you about? Not really. Not really. Got some cool live streams coming up. Uh, might do some more top 10 lists or something like that. I'm working on a new big album. Uh, I won't go more into it than that. And maybe I also shouldn't be so presumptuous as to think that people even are that in suspense that I would be this grandiose to not leak details. But anyone who's been a fan of my music in the past is going to definitely be extra hyped by the next thing that I'm working on now. So feeling very energized writing wise. Yeah, there it is. Thanks for coming by, people. Bye.